Good morning. Good morning, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome. Okay, guys, we're going to get going here. I'd like to welcome members, staff, and guests to this meeting of the Standing Committee on Legislative Offices. My name is Brandon Lunty, MLA for Leduc-Beaumont and Chair of the committee. I'd ask the members and those joining the committee at the table introduce themselves for the record.
Handing out Fort McMurray Wood Buffalo.
Gareth Rosewell, Vermilion, Lloydminster, Wainwright.
Scott Sear, MLA for Bonneville, Cold Lake, St. Paul.
Peggy Wright, MLA, Edmonton, Beverly, Clairview.
David Shepard, MLA, Edmonton City Centre.
Trafton Koenig, Office of Parliamentary Counsel.
Good morning, Nancy Robert, Clerk of Journals and Committees.
Good morning, Jody Rampel, Committee Clerk.
All right, I now ask those online. We'll go with who I can see first. MLA Petrovic, please go ahead.
Chelsea Petrovic, MLA for Livingston McLeod.
And MLA Chapman.
Amanda Chapman, MLA Calgary Bennington.
And MLA DeJong.
Thank you, Chair. MLA Chantal DeYoung, Chestermere Strathmore.
All right, thanks everyone. For the record, I would like to note the following substitutions. Mr. Dack is substituting for Member Marashiro, Mr. Rosewell for Mr. Dick, and Mr. Yao for Miss Lovely. So a few housekeeping items to address before we turn to the business at hand. Please note that the microphones are operated by Hansard, so members do not need to turn them on and off. Committee proceedings are being live streamed on the internet and broadcast on Alberta Assembly TV. We'd ask that members participating remotely should ensure they are prepared to speak or vote when called upon, and video conference participants are encouraged to have their cameras on if possible when speaking. Reminder to please set your cell phones and other devices to silent for the duration of the meeting. So we'll move on to our agenda. A draft agenda was circulated. Does anyone wish to propose an amendment? All right, seeing none, I would ask that a member please move a motion to approve the agenda.
Sure.
That's moved by MLA Yao. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Online?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? That motion is carried. We'll turn. Oh, sure. We see we've. Should I let him get his card in? Sure. So we'll move to our next agenda item, which is approval of minutes from the previous meeting. We also have a set of minutes that were posted. Are there any errors or omissions? All right, seeing none, would a member like to move a motion to approve the minutes? All right, it's moved by MLA Shepard. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Online?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, we'll turn to our, we'll give MLA Dack a chance to introduce himself for the record.
Yeah, Lauren Dack, MLA for Edmonton McLeod. Good morning.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, we'll move to the next item on our agenda, which is the officers of the legislature decision items, and we'll be beginning with supplementary funding requests. And just for everyone's information, at our meeting on December 5th, 2025, the committee received supplementary funding requests from 6 of the 7 offices of the legislature, and we are meeting today to review and make decisions on those requests. The first office on our agenda today is the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner. So the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner has submitted a request for supplementary funding in the amount of $334,575. Now we'll turn and ask if there's any discussion on this item. I see Member Sear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see that a lot of these supplemental items that are before us that will likely be supportive of them. I'd like to move a motion to start this off with the Standing Committee of Legislative Offices approve the request of the Office of Information and Privacy Commissioner for the supplementary funding in the amount of $334,575 for the 2025-26 fiscal year, and that the chair, on behalf of the committee, forward request to the President of Treasury Board and Minister of Finance.
Okay, that's a motion moved by MLA Sierra. Is that on our screen?
It is on the screen.
That is on our screen. All right, I would now open for discussion on this motion. MLA Shepherd, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to say I'm in agreement with this motion. Just to note, when we asked last week, Ms. McLeod was very clear to quote, "We are running at a skeleton budget at this point. As indicated, we did look for what we could save to try and lower the amount. We don't really have room to cut at this point." So I think Ms. McLeod was quite clear that her office has done their due diligence. They have made whatever cuts are possible. And so I'm in full agreement that we should meet the full request for supplementary funding.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there any other discussion on this motion? All right, seeing none, we'll call the question. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Online?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
All right, are there any opposed? All right, hearing none, that motion is carried. We'll turn to our second office, which is the Office of the Ombudsman. For those watching, that is a tricky word for me to say, so I'll read it a few more times. So the Office of the Ombudsman has submitted a request for supplementary funding in the amount of $58,500. Is there any discussion on the item? I see MLA Shepherd with his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move the standard motion that we meet this funding request in full. That is for the amount of $58,500.
Okay, if possible, could you please read the motion?
Read it into the record, certainly, Mr. Chair. That the Standing Committee on Legislative Offices approve the request from the Office of the Ombudsman for supplementary funding in the amount of $58,500 for the 2025-26 fiscal year, and that the Chair, on behalf of the committee, forward that request to the President of Treasury Board and Minister of Finance.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion on this motion? Emily Shepherd, go ahead.
Yeah, just to provide my reasoning, again, I think Mr. Brzezinski was quite clear when he met with our committee last week to quote, "We absorbed all the costs that we potentially could. We would just be over budget. We just certainly don't have the budget to manage it at this point." He also noted, quote, "Throughout the year, we did find lots of cost-saving measures. We reduced travel and training for our staff just to manage our budget effectively." So I would say Mr. Brzezinski and his staff have done their due diligence. They, again, are quite clear that they do not have room in their budget for cuts. So therefore, I support the full funding for the supplementary.
All right, thank you. I see MLA Petrovic has your hand raised. Go ahead, MLA Petrovic.
Thank you, Chair. I just want you to mark this day on the calendar. I agree with the opposition on this as well. I think that they have justified their supplemental request during their last presentations, and I'm fully in support of this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, I think we're good. Are there, unless there's any other discussion? All right, seeing none, we will call the vote on this motion. All those in favor in the room, please say aye. Aye. And online?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, are there any opposed? All right, that motion is carried. We can turn now to our next office, which is the Office of the Child and Youth Advocate. The Office of the Child and Youth Advocate has submitted a request for supplementary funding in the amount of $183,000. Is there any discussion on this item? MLA Shepherd, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move the standard motion to approve the supplementary funding request in full. So that the Standing Committee on Legislative Offices approve the request from the Office of the Child and Youth Advocate for supplementary funding in the amount of $183,000 for the 2025-26 fiscal year, and that the Chair, on behalf of the committee, forward that request to the President of Treasury Board and Minister of Finance. And if I may just provide my reasoning for that again. Just to note, again, Ms. Pelton, when she was here, we asked a number of questions about the funding situation for the office, and she was quite clear that any cuts to funding for that office would have a direct impact on the work they do supporting youth in our province, noting, of course, there are two areas in which they work, systemic advocacy and direct advocacy, but noting also that even the systemic advocacy, that is their review of different departments and recommendations to make to government, have a direct impact on direct advocacy and indeed the quality of life and saving the lives of children and youth in our province. So therefore, I am fully in support of meeting the full supplementary funding request.
All right, thank you. I see Emily DeYoung with your hand up online. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to speak briefly in support of this motion. The OCYA justified their supplemental funding request in our previous meeting in their presentation and in answering all of our questions. And this supplemental request it's important to ensure the OCYA can continue the important work that they're doing. So I support this motion.
All right, thank you. I would ask if there's any other discussion on this motion. All right, seeing none, I will call the question. For those in the room, all those in favor, please say aye. Online?
Aye.
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 All right, any opposed? All right, that motion is carried. We'll now turn to the Office of the Ethics Commissioner. So the Office of the Ethics Commissioner has submitted a request for supplementary funding in the amount of $23,203.29. Is there any discussion on this item? I see Emily Dack.
I'm prepared to submit the standard motion, please.
All right, sounds good. If you'd like to read it into the record, please.
I move that the Standing Committee on Legislative Offices approve the request from the Office of the Ethics Commissioner for supplementary funding in the amount of $23,203.29 for the 2025-26 fiscal year, and that the Chair, on behalf of the committee, forward the request to the President of Treasury Board and Minister of Finance.
All right, thank you. Would you like to provide a discussion on this item?
It's pretty self-explanatory, sir. It's a very small supplementary amount, and I think it would be incumbent upon this committee to respect the office is making the request for this small amount and approve it.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else? I see Emily DeYoung online again. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just speaking in support of this motion, again, the Ethics Commissioner justified the supplemental request during their presentation during our last meeting, answered all of our questions, and I know the bulk of this request deals with public sector agreements that impact wages and benefits of the employees of the office. So it's important that we approve this to ensure the office can continue the work they do without interruption. So I speak in support of this motion.
All right, thank you. Is there any other discussion on this item? Not seen any. I'm prepared to call the question. For those in the room, all those in favor of this motion, please say aye. Aye. Online?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, are there any opposed? All right, that motion is carried. We will now turn to the Office of the Ethics Commissioner. The Office of the Ethics Commissioner. Oh, sorry. Sorry?
Flip the page around to the auditor.
Oh. So we don't need to do that one twice. You only get one supplemental around here. We are now on the Office of the Auditor General. So the Office of the Auditor General has submitted a request for supplementary funding in the amount of $2,392,000. I would ask if there's any discussion on this item. I see Emily Sear has his hand up.
I'd like to move the standard motion.
Is this?
the Standing Committee of the Legislative Offices approve the request for the Office of the Auditor General for the supplementary funding in the amount of $2,392,000 for the 25-26 fiscal year, and that the Chair, on behalf of the committee, forward the request to the President of the Treasury Board and the Minister of
Okay,
Finance.
I see Emily Shepherd, but did you want to provide comments on that motion? Emily's here.
I would. Again, the Auditor General made a compelling case. In November, he wasn't quite ready for his supplemental, and we had adjourned that decision until December today. And now that we have the entirety of his ask, I feel comfortable, along with, I believe, my colleagues, that we can approve the entire request that he's put forward. In the last meeting, we also had it was very clear that with this funding, he is able to purchase some much-needed software, and I fully support that 25-year-old software does need to be updated. And I look forward to seeing what our Auditor General can do, and him and his good staff.
Thank you, sir. Emily Shepherd, your hand still up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank Mr. Sear for bringing this motion forward. I would just note, a motion had been put forward by government members proposing to not meet the supplementary funding, so I am very pleased to see that so far we have the agreement, at least one government member, that we should be providing the full amount that is asked for by the Auditor General. I would agree with Mr. Sear that the Auditor General, I would disagree. I would say at the meeting that we had previously in November, I think the Auditor General was quite clear in what he needed and why. I can't say why government members might not have found that clear, but I think the Auditor General himself, when he met with us here last time, he made it quite clear that they are doing everything they possibly can. And indeed, I don't know that I've ever seen such a level of frustration from a legislative officer, and in particular the Auditor General, with what we can only call the failure, I guess, of government members to understand or indeed question the work he is doing, or, to call into question the clarity with which he presents to this committee. I think he and his staff go to great efforts, are inordinately clear with us about the work they are doing and why and what they are asking. In this particular case, this funding is covering, first of all, the salary adjustments, which we have so far covered for all officers through the supplementary funding. Of course, as Mr. Sear noted, the replacement of end-of-life software, which I would also agree is absolutely important and essential to provide that. And thirdly, the agent costs for him to continue with the health entity restructuring audit. Now, again, that is what he spoke about when he was here in November. I did not have any trouble understanding his clarity at that point about what he needed and why, and he clarified for that us again at our last meeting, that indeed he had external agencies lined up to take on this work to audit the end of life of AHS and these new health entities which the government has created, which is essential work for due diligence on behalf of Albertans, and the contracts were ready to sign. The choice of government members not to provide that funding, which he made quite clear what he was asking for and why at that time, meant that those contracts had to be delayed, and it means that now he is going to be scrambling to get those contracts back up again and get this work done in time for the provincial deadlines for the overall financial audits. So I'm disappointed that he faced that delay that is going to cause this challenge now for doing the due diligence on behalf of Albertans. But I do thank Mr. Sear for moving this motion to approve it now so this work can go forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Looking for any other speakers on this item? Emily Dack, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I too share the opinion that the Auditor General was very, very clear in his last meeting. Although I wasn't on the committee for that meeting, I did watch it along with members of the public, as a member for Bonneville-Cold Lake indicated that he didn't quite get why the Auditor General was making the refund request that he was. And I, for one, along with the public that was watching, could sense very clearly the frustration of the Auditor General in attempting to provide a proper explanation I thought was very clear in doing so. So I'm pleased that the government has seen fit to backtrack on their initial indication that they would deny the full funding request, and I support the motion.
All right. Emily Sear, go ahead.
Again, we adjourned a motion. We did not reject a motion in that former meeting, just for clarity. So for the record, Mr. Dack, please.
Thank you, members, and I would maybe ask both sides. I'm certainly, it's important we get our discussion in. If we could keep our comments to the motion at hand. I understand there's always a little bit of history of this stuff, but be helpful to stay on track with the motion as presented here today. Emily DeYoung, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to speak in support of this motion briefly. I'm not sure what the members opposite are referring to, since the only motion on the floor is to approve this supplemental funding request, and it's important to ensure the office can continue the important work that they do. But Chair, if I may, I'm not going to call a point of order, but I think the chair should warn all committee members to not offend point of order 23H, which makes false allegations against other members, and that's certainly the territory into which we are drifting with the members opposite. So perhaps a warning from the chair would suffice. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Emily Jung, and I think we've had great discussion here. I think we're moving along in our agenda, and thank you for not calling a point of order, and I think it's important everyone gets a wide berth to make their points, and I'm confident we can all stay respectful and on point and on task here. MLA Wright, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, just to echo some of the comments of my colleagues as well, that and again, I am very appreciative of the motion that is on the floor. For a couple of reasons. First of all, because I was struck, I suppose would be the correct word, by the Auditor General in terms of a couple of key points that he made during his discussions last week. The first was that if the supplemental funding in whole was not granted, that there would be some implications in terms of the consolidated financial statements of the entire province. But in addition to that, he also talked about the fact that if there was less funding given to him in terms of the supplemental request, then he might not be able to work on the 8 new entities for health services in this province, and he underscored that by saying a number of times, to my recollection, that these were audits that that his office had been requested to do, and I will admit to being a little concerned, thinking that we might not agree to the full supplemental request. So I'm happy to support the motion.
All right, thank you. Don't see anyone else online or in the room, so I think we can call this question. In the room, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Online?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, are there any opposed? All right, this motion is carried. See if I can turn my page and get to the right office that we're on. So now we will be discussing the Elections Alberta supplemental request. Emily Chapman, I see that your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse myself from this portion of the meeting and the vote. So I plan to log out of the meeting, and I will return when we have completed the portion on the Chief Electoral Office.
Okay, thank you, MLA Chapman. MLA Shepherd, is this a comment on the procedure, or?
No, Mr. Chair, I wish to make a motion.
I would I'd like to be able to read the information into the record, just for. So this is our Elections Alberta discussion. Elections Alberta has submitted a request for supplementary funding in the amount of $9,964,082. And so we will now open it to discussion. Go ahead, Emily Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make the standard motion to provide the full funding requested by Elections Alberta in the amount of $9,964,082.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And if-
did he just read it? Or?
So if, yes, I can read it into the record, Mr. Chair, that the Standing Committee on Legislative Offices approve the request from the Office of the Chief Electoral Officer for supplementary funding in the amount of $9,964,082 for the 2025-26 fiscal year, and that the Chair, on behalf of the committee, forward the request to the President of Treasury Board and Minister of Finance.
All right, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, if I could motivate. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think we had some substantive discussion with the Chief Electoral Officer around the duties. And let's be clear about what he's requesting here. First of all, there's $226,853 for salary adjustment, which is what we have met for every legislative officer so far today. We had a request for $2,222,101 for verification of 7 additional petitions for recall. And we had quite a, I think, robust discussion with the Chief Electoral Officer around this, where he talked through the process, recognizing the fact that as soon as that request is received, his office begins to incur expenses. And again, recognizing that at a previous meeting in November, he made the request, and members chose, on the government side, chose to reduce that amount by a considerable amount. So there are expenses that the Chief Electoral Officer had from that point. Now, we will recognize, of course, that the Chief Electoral Officer did come back and provide, some clarity once they had actually been through the process, that in fact they needed less than they had asked. So these are the amounts then that have been reduced. So recognizing the work that was done on the Forever Canada Citizens Initiative petition, with that understanding on these recall petitions. Also recognizing then that there is significant work that has to go into this, and there are going to be additional recall petitions. There is also then the additional event preparation and readiness funding in the amount of $3,070,926. And again, Mr. McClure was quite clear. Any funds that are not used for the specific work for which he has outlined and made the request will be returned. So these are not dollars that are being given and simply cast, randomly or spent or wasted. Mr. McClure and his staff are doing the best they can in what is a new process that was imposed on them by government without a lot of consultation or opportunity for them to look at these expenses ahead of time. So I think Mr. McClure has been quite transparent in coming back, providing more clarity, providing better numbers when they were available. So I believe that this is the legislation that's been written. This is the work that is imposed on Mr. McClure. He does not have a choice in fulfilling it. So I do not see any reason to provide additional stress and uncertainty for him and his staff in simply trying to follow through on what has been given to them by government to fulfill. So that is my reason for moving the motion for the funding in full.
All right, thank you. I see Emily Petrovic online. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate you calling on me. Sometimes it's difficult to see us online, but appreciate it nonetheless. I just want to say that I do support this motion as well. I know last week that when it comes to the supplemental funding, some of my concerns were alleviated with that. So I fully support this motion for the supplemental funding of $9,964,082. Sorry, that's a large number that we're about to approve. I think approving this funding for election readiness is going to allow Elections Alberta to begin the necessary work for the upcoming general election and possible referendums that we're looking at. So just once again, mark the day on the calendar. I agree.
All right, thank you, Emily Petrick. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this motion? Emily DeYoung, I see your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to speak in support of the supplemental funding request. I believe our questions were answered in the last meeting, and this supplemental for the rest of the fiscal years is going to help Elections Alberta with with election readiness and begin the necessary work that they need to do for an upcoming general election, a possible referendum, as well as the verification processes for the of the signature portions of the recalls and the citizens petition. So fully support this motion.
All right, thank you, MLA DeYoung. MLA Wright, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. I will be brief, Chair. A couple of things that, again, I recall from the discussion last week with the with Mr. McClure was that he said again a number of times that should his office not receive this supplemental funding, what that would mean, because they have already incurred these costs, and because depending upon whether it's an election event, if it's a referendum, which of course is an event throughout the entire province, whether it is a recall petition, all of those things mean that costs incur from the moment that they start. And should we not grant the supplemental funding, it would mean that his office would then go into, he called it being encumbered, which to me was meant that they would essentially be carrying over a negative balance from year to year to year, and then would have to sort of make arrangements to deal with that encumbrance, and knowing that at some point in the next couple of years we will indeed have a general election, that may very well mean that we wouldn't have enough funds for this really important office, Elections Alberta, to actually run the election in an appropriate way, the way that they are supposed to, and the way that I think would mean that Albertans might lose a little bit of trust in the electoral process. I certainly would not want this particular office to be encumbered in any way. So again, supportive of the motion.
All right, Emily Dack, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps in the spirit of the season, we've seen a very timely conversion on the road to Damascus. It's been a stunning reversal from what the government had proposed earlier, to basically cut by a third the funding request made by Elections Alberta. So we're pleased that this has happened, but I can say that it's most likely as a result of the political pressure that they were feeling should they have gone ahead with this drastic cut. And we're grateful that the public has gotten to the members on the government side to convince them of the wisdom of this newfound enlightenment. Thank you.
All right, Emily Seard.
And again, I would like to correct for the record that we support our elections commissioner. We support the office of and on the good work that they're doing. But during the meeting, we found out that he was looking for $1.1 million per recall election, which would have equated to today about $23.1 million. To return back, the vast majority of that didn't make sense. And I'm glad to see that the elections commissioner brought back a budget that it looks like it's going to go through unanimously through this committee. So there wasn't a cut. What it was what we needed him to go back and look at what he was presenting. He did, and we accept that in its entirety. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Emily Sear. Looks like, Emily Petrick, is that a new hand?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just if you don't mind, just to go on MLA Sear's point, when the elections officer first came to us asking for $1 million for each recall verification, he did come back to us with that revised number of $317,500 per recall verification. So looking at other jurisdictions, this is a much reasonable number, and so I stand by holding off. There was never a chance of not funding him. It was just that at that moment in time, the numbers needed to be looked at, and obviously for good reason. When we're talking about taxpayers' dollars, we're looking at he came back with almost a third of the amount, and so it wasn't about not funding this individual. It was about making sure that the dollars were being spent appropriately, and looking at how this has played out from going from $1 million to 317 per recall verification. I'm very happy where the government has stand in making sure that we are appropriately spending some of these dollars. So Like my colleague had said, this looks like it's going to be passed unanimously for the supplemental budget. Thank you.
Thank you, MLA Petrovic. Seeing no other hands, am prepared to call the question. So in the room, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Online?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, are there any opposed? Seeing no opposed, it must be the season. This motion is unanimously passed and carried. All right, at the discretion of the chair, I'm going to ask that we take a quick 5-minute break before we move on to our next agenda item, where we will be considering budget estimates for these offices for the 26-27 fiscal year. Thank you. back. As I mentioned before we broke, we are now moving on to the next item in our agenda, which are budget estimates for 26-27. We will now move on to the 26-27 budget estimates received from the 7 offices of the legislature. Once again, we will begin with the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner. So the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner submitted a budget estimate for 26-27 in the amount of $10,656,408. And ask if there's any discussion on this matter. I see Emily here with his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move a motion that the Standing Committee of Legislative Offices amend the proposed budget estimates of the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner for the fiscal year 26-27 in the amount of $10,656,408 to a revised amount of $10,275,825. Approve the estimates as amended, and that the chair, on behalf of the committee, forward the request to the President of Treasury Board and the Minister of Finance.
Okay, that was read into the record, right, even though it's not on the screen? Okay, yeah, no, perfect. And Emily, Sarah, if you'd like to provide some discussion on your motion, on the motion side.
Again, when it comes to the position that the government of Alberta is in, we're looking at a $6.5 billion deficit for this upcoming year. And I know that the government of Alberta is looking to, or asking our ministries to find savings of 5%. Right now, we've got a increase in budget of the Privacy Commissioner of about 15% in this ask. We're reducing the amount of ask to 11%. So we believe that it is very reasonable. It is still far more than what the current or the last year's budget was. And that 95% of the funding request is something that I think that all of our government ministries and commissioners should be able to meet. Now, this is a significant increase, and it does exceed the increases that the committee approved in the last 2 years. So not only is this increase still in line with what we were giving in the last 2 years, it is still ensuring that there's adequate funding for the commissioner to be able to meet her duties. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily Sear. Emily Shepherd, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm disappointed to see this motion from the government member. Again, Ms. McLeod was quite clear when she presented to this committee, quote, "We are already running at a skeleton budget at this point. As I indicated, we did look for what we could save to try and lower the amount. We really don't have room to cut at this point." She was quite clear that the only thing that they have the option to do is to cut staff, is to not fill positions. And we already know this office is struggling. They are dealing with a great deal of changes in legislation that were brought forward by this government, a government that has had to be investigated multiple times by the Privacy and Information Commissioner, so making the work more difficult. And again, to quote further, in fact, you know, we already struggle with doing the work that we do with the resource capacity that we have. And if I were to have to cut an additional resource out of my workforce, it would certainly make it more difficult. Further quote, "We really don't have much to carve out. If I were to have to absorb $300,000, and in this case, let's be clear, what the member is proposing, Mr. Sear, is a cut of about $400,000. So again, quoting, if I were to have to absorb $300,000, that's quite a bit of money. Considering my budget is not actually that big compared to, say, the Auditor General's budget, for example, we would have to look very carefully at what we could do, and it could actually result in staff layoffs at this point." The OIPC, Mr. Chair, serves Albertans. Albertans who are trying to access information about their government. This is a key part of the process to holding government to account. And let's be very clear. When Member Sear talks about, you know, fiscal due diligence, as has been noted by folks like conservative columnist Rob Breckenridge. This government has vastly increased spending at a rate far higher than the previous government in a much shorter period, and is still running a deficit at a time when they have 3 times the royalty revenue. So, and this is not putting any motives or any impetus on Mr. Cyr, but this kind of a cut, frankly, just feels petty and performative. It accomplishes nothing. It is a drop in the bucket of the provincial budget at a time when the government itself is going for further extravagance, like paying salaries now to parliamentary secretaries and others. So it is spending more for its interests, but on the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner, whose sole purpose is to serve the people of Alberta, the government making a cut that the commissioner has been very clear is going to directly impact and damage the ability of that office to do their work. Now, Mr. Cyr also talked about, about the fact that, the government has been requesting these cuts over previous years, and so it is generous that the government this year is now meeting 11% when it has held the office. Mr. Chair, this is precisely why we are seeing this request for such a significant increase this year, because members from the government have continually cut in previous years and refused to meet the funding requests. And when you do that, you eventually reach a point where you have cut to the bone. And the commissioner is quite clear, we are at that point now. So I'm sorry. I don't look across the way and say how kind, how generous of these government members. I see this as a lack of due diligence to ensure that Albertans are able to receive the services that they need. So I will be voting against this motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I see Emily Petrovic with your hand up online. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just heard the member opposite talk about cuts. I lost count on how many times he said that we're cutting this budget. I just want to reiterate that we are increasing this budget 11% from last year. What we are doing right now is we are just asking that offices look at a 5% savings in what they're doing. This isn't a cut. This is an 11% increase. There is no cut sitting here. We are not asking them to cut their budget. We are increasing their budget by 11%, Chair. And I just need to clarify that. There's significant increases that this committee has approved over the last 2 years. And once again, we're increasing this budget by 11%. And so I just want to clarify this for the members opposite to maybe be mindful of their words. There is no cutting. And I think I'm going to just keep saying there is no cutting as many times as they're saying that we are cutting. We are giving them an 11% increase. That is all, Chair.
All right, thank you, Emily Petrovic. I have Emily Shepherd in the room, but I'm going to go to Emily Chapman first online. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So just hearing the comment from the other committee member, so I think that I would just like to clarify from my perspective on cuts, because what we're talking about here is this office having to cut staff. That is the result of not approving the funding request. Now, this government has approved salary increases. And from looking, this is across all of these offices, the increases in budget that they are looking for is to cover government approved salary increases. And the result at this committee, if we do not decide to approve the amounts requested, is going to be a cut. It's going to be a cut in the workforce, which means a reduction in services that this office will be able to offer to Albertans. So I just want to be as clear as the member who spoke before me that yes, we absolutely are talking about a cut here. We're talking about a cut in the service level that this office is able to provide. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will not be supporting this motion.
All right, Emily Shepherd, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to echo what Emily Chapman just said. I want to be absolutely clear here. So about, 30 minutes ago, we approved a supplementary funding request for this office to backfill for the last year, again, in part because government members last year chose not to provide the funding that was requested by the Information and Privacy Commissioner to cover salary increases and other pieces. And then, of course, there was a further salary increase that came during the year. But we approved a supplementary funding increase of $334,575, and now the government members are proposing to cut $413,000 approximately. So we are obliterating the supplementary funding request that we just provided. Essentially zeroing it out and then taking away an additional $100,000. When the Information and Privacy Commissioner was very, very clear that even $300,000 would have a significant impact on the ability of our office to do the work. And Mr. Chair, I just want to be very clear. This is not irresponsibility on the part of these officers, okay? This is not a failure of them to do their duty, to step up. They have been very, very clear they have been doing exactly and precisely that. And when the government chooses to increase the workload through changes in legislation, to put more responsibilities on the commissioner and her office, on top of salary increases, I will disagree with Ms. Petrovic. When you increase workload and you increase the work and then you refuse to provide the dollars that are required to meet that in fact ends up being a cut. Much as when you don't increase education funding to cover the amount of new students, that it also then becomes a cut. You increase responsibilities, you increase work, refuse to provide the resources that are needed to cover it, it's effectively a cut. So this is going to mean that Albertans will receive less service, have less ability to hold their government to account. And certainly we do not impute motives of this committee, but I'll just note, refusing to provide the resources makes it harder to hold the government to account. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
MLA Wright, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to get into a little bit of nitty-gritty here because folks have been talking about previous budgets and that sort of thing. So I do want to underscore the point that the bulk of the budget increase has to do with salaries that, quite frankly, were timely. But aside from that, and we heard from folks earlier about that issue that they are absolutely cut to the bone at this point. They don't have anywhere else that they can cut other than to potentially lay off staff. They already have a very small team, and that small team's work is important to this province because it very much speaks to the trust that Albertans have in the government and in everything that the government might be providing or not providing in the way of information in a timely manner. We recently had the Auditor General's report out that again talked about the fact that on occasion government officials are less than open to providing the information that is in fact that they are supposed to be providing. But nonetheless, I just want to point out here that when you compare the 25-26 budget with the 26-27 estimates for contract services, they are only asking for an additional $3,000. Technology services, which of course is a big one, they're asking for, it's about $100,000 extra, but she fully explained that. They need to bring everything up to standard. Materials and supplies going down by $10,000. Travel staying exactly the same. Communications exactly the same. And miscellaneous, all those sorts of extra things are actually going down by over $10,000. This office is doing absolutely what it can in the very most responsible way that it possibly can to ensure that it is there for Albertans. The commissioner also noted that right now backlog is down in terms of all of the cases that are coming in, all those people who are asking for assistance. But she was also very clear that that backlog will rise. She also very much pointed out that the budget presented to us was the minimum required to meet their business plan for the next year. That's the minimum required. There is nowhere else to cut other than, as folks have said, with salaries. And again, Chair, this will end with a reduction of Albertans' trust in this government. I will not be supporting this.
All right. Emily Petrovic, do you have anything, or should we call the question?
Sorry, my apologies, Chair. I didn't mean to raise my hand.
Okay. All right. So I will call the question on this motion. For those in the room, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Online?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, in the room, any opposed to the motion?
Opposed?
Online?
Opposed.
All right. So that motion is carried. All right. So a recorded vote has been requested. Those in the room who are in favor of the motion, please raise your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have Mr. Yao, Mr. Roswell, and Mr. Seer.
All right. Those in the room who are opposed to the motion, please raise your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have Mr. Dack, Mr. Shepherd, and Ms. Wright.
All right. For those members participating remotely, please turn on your cameras and microphones if you wish to vote. When the committee clerk calls your name, please indicate whether you are in favor or against the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mrs. Petrovic.
In favor.
I see Ms. DeYoung,
In favor.
and I see Ms. Chapman.
Opposed.
Mr. Chair, I have 5 in favor and 4 against.
All right, thank you. So that is carried. We will turn to our next office, which is the Office of the Ombudsman. The Office of the Ombudsman submitted a budget estimate for 26-27 in the amount of $5,650,260. As for discussion, I see Emily Sear with his hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to move a motion, Mr. Chair, that the Standing Committee of Legislative Offices amend the proposed budget estimates for the Office of the Ombudsman for the fiscal year 26-27 in the amount of $5,650,260 to a revised amount of $5,433,105. Approve the estimates as amended, and that the chair, on behalf of the committee, forward the request to the President of the Treasury Board and the Minister of Finance.
All right, Emily Sear, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, again, I see the good work that our ombudsman is doing when it comes to pressures on all of budgets throughout the government right now. We're clearly seeing that a $6.5 billion deficit by the government of Alberta is something that we need to manage. This is one of those things that the Ombudsman's office has asked for a almost 17% increase in budget. I believe that there is some savings, and we moved it to 95% of what he is requesting to 13% increase in his budget. This is a very reasonable amount for us to be moving forward. I will say that being mindful of the economic times, we need to be ensuring that we're good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars that they're making, and that managing even the nickels and dimes, if you will, the smaller parts, is important for the government of Alberta. The opposition had stated that really it's immaterial in the budget for the last one. I would suggest that we all need to do our part, including our commissioners. And I think that, well, I know that this commissioner will find a way to be able to find those savings and be able to deliver those services. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Emily Wright, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things. The first thing is, like our previous discussion, this reduction of about $200,000+ completely obliterates the amount of money that we just awarded them in the supplementary request. 4 times the amount, as my colleague has just pointed out. You know, and being stewards of taxpayer funds, I completely understand that is our job. We are here to ensure that these independent offices of the legislature are indeed expending funds in the most prudent way possible. But the other part of that, though, Mr. Chair, that prudence needs to extend again into, we also need to think about the very important work that all of these different offices are doing. And the Office of the Ombudsman indeed does an awful lot of important work. And in order to do that important work, Mr. Brzezinski talked about the fact that they have done nothing but reductions. They've reduced management of supplies and services. They've reduced travel and training for staff. And I would argue that on occasion, that training for staff is exactly what should be happening in order to do the very good work that we would want them to continue to do. They've reduced advertising. They didn't have any vacancies over the last year. They've absorbed what they can. They cannot absorb any more. They talked about cutting out costs for legal expenditures. They have done exactly what we would have wanted them to do. And certainly in his budget document, he talks about, he uses the word austerity. This is an austerity budget. Again, I would say that this is a budget that is required to do the minimum, not the maximum, but the minimum. This is the minimum required in order to do the work that the office is legislatively required to do. And while it may not seem perhaps like an awful lot of money, it is an awful lot of money when you're dealing with a budget this size. And again, I talk about the trust of Albertans. This office, much like the others that we're talking about today, that bottom line do Albertans trust the government? The work that this office does very much speaks to that. And to sort of, cut the cut the $200,000, not only obliterating what we just gave them, I think will again have an impact on their work, which means Albertans, I think, will wonder, in fact, if they can actually trust this government.
All right, I have a couple online. Thank you, MLA Wright. We'll go to MLA Petrovic.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to note once again that the funding that we are proposing today represents an increase of 13% over last year's budget. So this is an increase of 13% over last year. These independent offices, their budgets are increasing at a higher level than the ministries, and the ministries provide direct core services to Albertans. The requested increase is more than inflation and adjustments plus population, which is the government's benchmark. So I just wanted to clarify, Office of the Ombudsman, which is a tricky word, Chair. I know that you appreciate that. They do great work. They do wonderful work. And this is why we are increasing their budget by 13% over last year. And I just wanted to clarify once again that this is not a cut. This is an increase of 13%. We know looking forward into the future of Alberta, we're asking for everyone to find some savings, and still, yet again, 13% over last year, and the requested increase is far more than what government's benchmark are, which is inflation adjustments plus population, and we just need to continuously reiterate that this is an increase in their budget from last year.
All right, thank you. MLA Chapman, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Would just like to clarify again for the committee that, yeah, this is a cut on the request for the Office of the Ombudsman. If you take a look at the budget documents, you can see that it's about 93% of their budget is used on salary. And of course, it was this government who negotiated the salary increase to the public service. That's exactly what we were approving in the supplemental funding for all of these offices. I'm going to say this, I think, on every office, I think, Mr. Chair, because I don't think that everyone here is understanding this, but that those increases, the supplementary funding was to cover the increases in salary as a result of the government's negotiated settlement with the public sector. So I'm feeling a little confused, Mr. Chair. I'm not understanding. So with one hand, the government said, yeah, we approve this salary. And now with the other hand, the government members of this committee are saying, oh, but no, we're not actually going to approve you the money to pay for the salaries that we agreed we would increase. It's completely nonsensical. And obviously, I will not be supporting this motion.
All right, thank you, Emily Chapman. Emily Shepherd, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be brief. Just a couple things I want to just add to the record. So just the quote from Mr. Brzezinski when he was here at committee. Quote, "We absorbed all the costs that we potentially could. We would just be over budget. We certainly don't have the budget to manage it at this point." So that's the salary increase, which was part of the supplementary funding request of $58,500, which has just been obliterated by this cut, which is 4 times that amount. He was quite clear in the work they had done. We definitely reduced our management of supplies and services. This is me quoting Mr. Brzezinski. We reduced travel and training for our staff, just the very core training that we provided, so very diligent in that regard. We reduced advertising. We did have a budget for advertising as well in order to get the word out about our office, so we reduced that. I will say that we just recently saw a sole source contract from this government advertising against teachers at a cost of $300,000, $100,000 more than the amount these members are proposing to cut from this office. Mr. Brzezinski did due diligence in cutting advertising. To continue to quote, throughout the year, we did find lots of cost-saving measures. We reduced travel and training for our staff just to manage our budget effectively. In my view, Mr. Brzezinski has done due diligence. He has done his work. The government, frankly, because members are bringing up our government is trying, our government is doing, no. The Premier's office increased their budget. Cabinet is increasing budget by paying parliamentary secretaries. The pay increase for 2 parliamentary secretaries could dwarf the amount that's being cut here. So I can't take that from these members, no. This government is not doing due diligence. It is taking more money where it wants it and denying it where Albertans need it. I will not be supporting this motion.
All right, I'm prepared to call this question. So I think we start with those in the room. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Online?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, all those opposed in the room?
Opposed?
Online?
Opposed.
All right, that motion is carried.
Recorded vote, Mr. Chair.
All right, we have a request for a recorded vote. So those in the room who are in favor of the motion, please raise your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mr. Yao, I see Mr. Roswell, and I see Mr. Sear.
All right, those in the room who are opposed to the motion, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mr. Shepherd, and I see Ms. Wright, and I see Mr. Dack.
All right, for those members participating remotely, please turn on your cameras and microphones if you wish to vote. When the committee clerk calls your name, please indicate whether you are in favor or against the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mrs. Petrovic.
In favor.
I see Mrs. DeYoung,
In favor.
and I see Ms. Chapman.
Opposed.
Mr. Chair, I have 5 in favor and 4 against.
All right, that motion is carried. We'll move on to the Office of the Public Interest Commissioner. So the Office of the Public Interest Commissioner submitted a budget estimate for 26-27 in the amount of $1,666,760. Is there any discussion on this matter? I want to play fair online. I see Emily Petrovic has a hand raised.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to go ahead and move a motion and for discussion. So I move that the Standing Committee on Legislative Offices amend the proposed budget estimates for the Office of the Public Interest Commissioner for the fiscal year of 2026-2027 in the amount of $1,668,760 to a revised amount of $1,616,000. Approve the estimates as amended, and that the chair, on behalf of the committee, forward the request to the President of the Treasury Board and Minister of Finance.
All right, Emily Petrovic, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, this committee here, um, we've talked about it when we're looking at our ledge offices and these public interests. The funding we're proposing today represents an increase of 7% over last year's budget. The Office of the Public Interest Commissioner does wonderful work. We intend to fund them an additional 7% over what we gave them last year. And the officer's additional requests have also been granted. So this is a significant increase that the committee has approved over the last 2 years. And once again, we are just asking them for that 5% in savings. Thank you.
All right, I do see some hands in the room, but I'm going to go to Emily Chapman first. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So just to clarify again that the budget amount that's being approved here will not be sufficient to cover the salary increases that were approved by this government. The Public Interest Commissioner was very clear on the record when we asked about the increase to the budget being due to the salary increases required by the public service. The response was, quote, yes, the salary adjustment as well as a tiny merit increase. There are only 7 people within the Public Interest Commissioner. So a huge chunk of that is the salary adjustment, yes. So just want to make sure that we're clear on the record here that once again, the government members of this committee are unwilling to provide the funding that this office requires to fulfill the increases that the government had approved on public service. I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Emily Chapman. Emily Dack, I think I saw your hand.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I wanted to make note that the government members have repeatedly referred to an arbitrary yardstick to justify lower amounts and argue for reductions in the budget estimates by suggesting that the government has implemented a 5% reduction request across the board and has looked for savings from ministries. Therefore, committee members are expected to follow those marching orders in committee. Another arbitrary yardstick that they're attempting to justify here is by using the population and inflation measure, which government is using to justify reductions in ministry budgets. So I'd like to suggest, Mr. Chair, that this committee has an independent nature about it and is expected to make recommendations to government, not necessarily follow the beck and call of government. We're supposed to make recommendations to the legislature, given our deliberations here and our interpretation of what the request for funding has been from the various legislative officers. And applying this arbitrary yardstick does no justice to the presentations made to this committee by the legislative officers, and including the Public Interest Commissioner, who once again has looked at the budget that they have in front of them for the upcoming fiscal year and suggested that this was a number that was arrived at given very, very, very sharp pencils, and we suggest that the number should be respected.
All right, thank you, Emily Dack. Are there others wishing to join this debate on this motion? Emily Cyr, go ahead.
I'd like to support my colleague, Emily Petrovic, in this motion. Again, we're looking at a $6.4 to $6.5 billion deficit this year. While I understand the opposition's willingness to just give our commissioners whatever they ask, if this ask would have been 50%, it sounds like they would improve that. They had come in with a 10% increase in budget for this office, and we have accepted a 7% increase to this. So to phrase this as a cut, it's absurd. And continuing to repeat the word cut just hoping that it becomes true. It's absurd. So we also gave as the ombudsman, we also gave him a 13% increase in his budget as well. So I expect that all of our ministries will find savings for our taxpayers, because running deficits of this magnitude is something we need to take seriously, even if the opposition seems to see that there is no ability to find savings for the government of Alberta, for our commissioners. I believe there is the ability, and 95% of their budget is being approved and increased from the last year. So just to reiterate, I fully support and will vote yes for my colleague, Emily Petrovic.
Thank you, Emily Sear. Emily Shepherd, I saw your hand up. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to respond to Mr. Sear, absolutely, I would love to see this government reduce spending and bring down that $6 billion deficit. Legislature that are putting us in a position where we have a multi-billion-dollar deficit, especially when government is increasing spending in many areas where they feel it benefits themselves. So I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Emily Shepherd. Looks like we
recorded vote, Mr. Chair.
I had assumed so. I was surprised there. All right, recorded vote has been requested. So those in the room who are in favor of the motion, please raise your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mr. Roswell, I see Mr. Yao, and I see Mr. Sear.
All right, and for 26-27 in the amount of $18,734,000. We'll now open to any discussion on this matter. Emily Petrovic, you're quick on the draw today. I see your hand up. Go ahead.
I am. I'm back home down south, so we need to be quick on the draw. Chair, I'd just like to move a motion already that the Standing Committee on Ledge Offices amend the proposed budget estimates for the Office of the Child and Youth Advocate for the fiscal year of 2026-2027 in the amount of $18,734,000 to a revised amount of $18,219,000. Approve the estimates as amended, and that the chair, on behalf of the committee, forward the request to the President of Treasury Board and Minister of Finance.
All right, we now have that on the screen, but thank you for reading into the record. Emily Petrovic, would you like to provide some comments on the motion?
Yeah, once again, Chair, this is, as we're looking at the funding proposal, we are looking at a funding proposal that represents an increase of 8% over last year's budget. We are, our hope, I'm not going to.
Against this motion for a couple of reasons. The first is, and I'm going to use the word cut again, Mr. Sear, sorry about that, but it is indeed a cut. It's a $515,000 cut from their budget ask. And again, the advocate was exceptionally clear with us that this is one of those budgets that is the minimum amount required. And in fact, she did note that over the last 5 years, they've held a portion of the budget exactly the same. Exactly the same for the last 5 years. So they have done exactly what one would expect that an organization that is engaged in practice of fiscal prudence, if you will, would be doing. They have absolute practice of fiscal prudence, if you will, would be doing. They have absolutely done that. And to note as well that she's talked about if there were indeed, if there was indeed a cut in the budget, they would first look to the office itself. But then she also pointed out that just because they're looking at the office, which of course means people, Mr. Chair, just because they're looking at the office doesn't mean there won't be a direct impact on the extraordinarily important work that this particular group does. And we had some really lovely discussions last week about that very important work. And both folks from our side and folks from the other side recognized, Mr. Chair, the very important work that the Child Youth Advocate does. It's about protecting children. It's about telling their stories. It's about hopefully learning from the experiences of some of those kids who are in care so that we can learn to do better on their behalf. And she was asked very directly, what will the impact be? And she talked about the fact that the bulk of their operational expense is on that piece called direct advocacy. So if we are proposing taking $500,000 out of the budget for this organization over the next year, then I would say that there will be some children that will not be served by this government that deserve to be served, Mr. Chair, and deserve to have their stories told.
Thank you, Emily Wright. I see Emily Chapman with your hand up online. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to read a quote from the advocate in the meeting where she presented her budget, where she said, quote, "We looked really hard at what was the very minimum amount that we could manage with these really high increases that were negotiated or that the public service brought in." So yes, I am making the same point I've made on every other office, which is that the bulk or the majority of this increase is related to the negotiated salaries as a part of the public service. I maintain my confusion as to how the government members of this committee don't understand that they have a commitment to actually fulfill those mandated increases, that if you do not fund these offices to pay for those salary increases, that the offices, due to the austerity of this government over a number of years now, have no fat left to trim. So the only thing that we're going to see here now is offices having to reduce the service that they provide Albertans, who are going to have to be looking at reducing staff. And maybe that's exactly what the government members here want to happen, because certainly I haven't heard any of them provide any kind of rationale for where they think there is space to cut in these budgets. I will not be supporting this motion.
All right, thank you, Emily Chapman. Emily Shepherd, I saw your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just briefly to sort of follow up on the comments from my colleague, Ms. Chapman. So the supplementary funding request that was approved by this committee today for this office was $183,000. So we are effectively, again, cutting by twice that much from the budget ask. So again, Emily Chapman noted, the vast majority of the increasing costs is coming from salary increases. We gave with one hand, and now the government is taking away more than twice as much with the other, the government members. So that is going to have a deep impact on this office. And I will just note, for each of us as members, for our offices and our staff and our services that we provide to Albertans, none of us has taken a cut. In fact, we get annual increases to cover our staff. We get annual increases to ensure that we can provide our service and our supports. And indeed, there is a select handful of government members who serve as parliamentary secretaries who are going to be getting a top-up to their salary for the work they do on behalf of Albertans. I think the least we can do is respect these offices when they come in. They present the work they have done, the due diligence, the cuts. They have acted in the best of faith to try to provide the services they provide at the best cost they can and to minimize. The government has refused to meet the government members have refused to meet the requests year over year, which leads to an accumulation, which leads to the point where they're having to make these asks this year. So I will not be supporting the motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I think I'm prepared to call a question. Emily's here. I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Again, I just want to reiterate that that the ask from the Child and Youth Advocate was for 11% increase in budget. From the prior year, we are giving an 8% increase in budget. Terming this as a cut is absurd. I would suggest that when it comes to the good work that they're doing, and I do believe that they are doing excellent work and protecting our youth and children within the province, and I want to see that continue. And over the past 2 years, we've approved practical and reasonable budget increases to this office. This works out to be about 2%, which is in line with inflation. So we're actually quadrupling what we've given in budget increase over the last 2 years. And to suggest again that a 8% increase to the budget from last year is a cut is out of line with reality. Thank you.
Emily Shepherd.
Mr. Chair, I'll just say a couple things quickly. First of all, recognize that I know from conversations with folks that work in some of these offices, they watch these committee proceedings. And I imagine that all of the staff and the officers themselves are tracking what is happening at this committee today. So I just want to, on behalf of myself and my colleagues, offer our apologies for the lack of consideration. Secondly, I will just simply say this: actions speak louder than words. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I think we're ready to call this question. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Online?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, all those opposed to this motion, please say so. Opposed. And online?
Opposed.
All right, and that motion is carried.
Recorded vote.
And we have a request for a recorded vote. Those in the room who are in favor of the motion, please raise your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mr. Yao, I see Mr. Roswell, and I see Mr. Sear.
All right, and those in the room who are opposed to the motion, please raise your hands.
Mr. Chair, I see Mr. Dack, I see Mr. Shepherd, and I see Ms. Wright.
All right, and for those members participating remotely, please turn on your cameras and microphones. If you wish to vote, when the committee clerk calls your name, please indicate whether you are in favor or against the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mrs. Petrovic.
In favor.
I see Ms. DeYoung.
In favor.
I see Ms. Chapman.
Opposed.
Mr. Chair, I have 5 in favor and 4 against.
All right, that motion is carried. We'll move on now to the Office of the Ethics Commissioner. The Office of the Ethics Commissioner submitted a budget estimate for the 26-27 year in the amount of $1,217,500. Ask for any discussion. I see MLA DeYoung with her hand. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll save the discussion for later. I'm actually going to jump right into moving a motion. And I move that the Standing Committee on Legislative Offices amend the proposed budget estimate for the Office of the Ethics Commissioner for the fiscal year 2026 to 2027 in the amount of $1,217,500 to the revised amount of $1,173,100. Approve the estimates as amended, and that the chair, on behalf of the committee, forward the request to the President of Treasury Board and the Minister of Finance.
All right, thank you, and thank you for reading that into the record. MLA DeYoung, would you like to speak to the motion?
I would, yes. Over the past 2 years, this committee has approved reasonable and practical budgetary increases, which works out to be about 2% in line with inflation, not just an arbitrary number as was suggested earlier. So 2% increases over the last 2 years, and the funding that I'm proposing that for today represents an increase of over 7.5% over last year's budget. So a significant increase compared to the last 2 years. That's 5.5 percentage points. And the intent here is to approve 95% of the funding requested for salaries, wages, and benefits. And the officers' additional requests are being granted, and we're asking, as we've seen throughout our meeting today, we're asking the independent officers to find some savings in their budget to account for that 5%. That's a reasonable ask. That's a prudent ask. I think Albertans expect government, they expect independent officers, and they expect members of this committee to be thoughtful and prudent with public dollars. And I think this motion reflects that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, MLA DeYoung. I see MLA Wright. Go ahead.
Okay. So again, Chair, and I sense that there's a pattern developing where we will say that this is a real cut, and again, this is a real cut, and the folks across will say, no, it's not a real cut, except that, of course, it is a real cut. This is taking $44,000 out of the commissioner's budget for the operations of his office over the next year. Again, he was exceptionally clear when he was speaking with us last year. He talked about, or last year, sorry, last week. He talked about a rise in complaints. A rise in complaints, and he was again exceptionally clear about what that means. It means that there is a person in their office who has to go through each and every individual complaint. That is the requirement. That takes time. That also takes a person. And there's an increase in lobbying requests. You talk about timelines, that there will be an impact on timelines. If they're getting a rise in complaints, or if they're getting a rise simply in inquiries from folks who want to know if they do this, will this be an ethical choice or not? Just simply advice. Someone has to look at that, and someone has to consider that request, and then someone has to get back to the person who is asked that request. All of that takes time. Their office is exceptionally small at the moment. They do not have a massive complement of staff. And so then with that commensurate rise in complaints, rise in folks who are simply asking for things, what we're asking them to do is really the impossible, I think. And to take $44,000 away from them, I would love to know from the folks opposite where they should take $44,000. Because again, he was exceptionally clear. He talked about the fact that they have absorbed, much like the other offices they have absorbed all that they can over the last number of years. They need to increase, or not to increase, to update their technology. Should they take it out of that? Should they not go forth and begin that request for proposal process? Should they not even think about updating that lobbyist registry and just keep it as it is? Which we know is not a way forward. Should they take it out of contract services? Where exactly should they take this money from? That would be my question to the members opposite. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily Wright. Emily Chapman, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would just love to reiterate everything I've said, because the case here is exactly the same as it was for every office. If you actually look at the budget, you can see that the vast majority of the increase requested by this office is related to the salary costs due to the government negotiated and mandated salary increases to the public service. And to echo my colleague who just spoke, I do wonder if the members, I don't know if they've taken the time to look at the budget documents, to understand them, but if they could come forward and make some real suggestions for where they think the 5% cut can come from these offices. Because what I see in the budgets is that for all of these offices, it's the vast majority of the budget is to cover the staff costs. That makes sense. All of these offices are people doing work in service of Albertans. I will not be supporting this motion for the same reason I have not supported the preceding three motions.
All right, thank you. Emily Petrovic, go ahead, and then we'll go to Emily Dack after.
Thank you, Chair. I want to reiterate once again, they keep using the word cuts. It's important to mention that the budget submitted is an estimate. So the issue of a cut isn't there at all. What we're doing is we're increasing these budget estimates by 7.5%. So I understand that the members opposite, like to continue to use the word cuts and are getting extraordinarily repetitive over and over and over again about what this looks like. Chair, I'm just going to say I'd really like you to call the question. I think they've at this point it's just become repetitive. There are no cuts that are being presented. It's a 7.5% increase from last year, and it's a budget estimate.
Thank you, Emily Petrick. I appreciate your comments for sure, and I don't think we need to call a question just yet. We want to make sure everyone gets a chance to weigh in. I would suggest that those watching online can hear both sides, and they'll get a chance to decide what a cut is or isn't. So I have Emily Chapman online, and then I think I had Emily Dack as well. Go ahead, Emily Chapman.
Thank you so much, Chair. And just to try to provide clarification again, for the member who just spoke, who seems to be not understanding, which is probably why I am repeating the same points over and over. The government approved salary increases for the public service. The offices of the legislature have come forward with budget requests to cover the mandated salary increases. So if this committee does not approve the budget requests and funding required to cover those salary increases, what are these offices meant to do other than make cuts? They will have to make cuts in order to live within the means that the government members of this committee are setting for them. They don't control the salary increases mandated by the government. They are obliged to follow those. So when you don't have enough money to pay for the people you have working in your office and the increases that are mandated by the government, what do? You cut things. So you either cut salary positions or you cut the office's ability to communicate with the public about their work. You cut their ability to advertise their services. You cut the amount of service that you are providing for Albertans. That is absolutely what's happening here. It is absolutely what's happened in the last 2 years on this committee. And I will keep saying it because I'm not sure that the members opposite are truly hearing it. Thank you for another chance to speak, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it.
All right, Emily Dack, please. Oh, you're good. All right, so I think, oh, Emily Shepherd, did you?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I think we're ready to call this question. Those in the room, all those who support this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, online?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, in the room, any who oppose this motion, please indicate. And online?
Opposed.
All right, that motion is carried. We have a request for a recorded vote. So a recorded vote has been requested. Those in the room who are in favor of the motion, please raise your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mr. Yao, Mr. Roswell, and Mr. Sear.
All right, and those who are opposed to the motion, please raise your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mr. Dack, Mr. Shepherd, and Ms. Wright.
All right. And for those members participating remotely, please turn on your cameras and microphones if you wish to vote. When the committee clerk calls your name, please indicate whether you are in favor or against the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mrs. Petrovic.
In favor.
I see Ms. DeYoung,
In favor.
and I see Ms. Chapman.
Opposed.
Mr. Chair, I have 5 in favor and 4 against.
Okay, thank you very much. That is carried. We will move on to the Office of the Auditor General. The Office of the Auditor General submitted a budget estimate for 26-27 in the amount of $37,960,000. We'll open up for discussion. I see Emily Sear has his hand up.
So I'd like to move a motion, Mr. Chair, that the Standing Committee of Legislative Offices amend the proposed budget estimates for the Office of the Auditor General for the fiscal year 2026-2027 in the amount of $37,960,000 to a revised amount of $36,477,000. Approve the estimates as amended, and that the Chair, on behalf of the committee, forward the request to the President of Treasury Board and the Minister of Finance.
All right, thank you, Emily Sear, and thank you for reading that into the record. I would ask, do you have anything to contribute to the motion?
Yes, again, I would like to just commend the Auditor General and the good work of him and his staff that they're doing within their office. Their ask from last year is a 19.1% increase. That's almost 20% increase in their budget. We are looking to increase their budget with this amendment by 14%, which is almost, I would say, 7 times the rate of inflation. This is important work that our Auditor General is doing. That he's doing investigations. He's doing our audits, as the members opposite have mentioned. We granted the entire supplementary unanimously with the members opposite, just to show that we want to ensure that our Auditor General has the ability to be able to meet his duties. At the end of the presentations for the last week, the Auditor General said that he has the capability of being able to do his duties, his core duties. And I'd like to just make sure that that's on the record, that just finding efficiency along with government is something you would hope that our Auditor General would strive to do, especially with that office. This is finding efficiencies on a almost $40 million budget is something that I think that the Auditor General can and strive to do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Emily's here. I'll go to Emily Chapman, then I'll go to Emily Shepherd.
Thank you so much, Chair. So again, just want to remind the committee the reasons for which the Auditor General was requesting an increase to his budget. And as the member who spoke before me just mentioned, yes, we did grant the supplementary funding. That's why it's extra confusing for me that we're not granting the budget request, because it is for the same things. The supplementary funding was to cover the mandated increase to public sector salaries. It was also to deal with the audit software that was required and the new audits that are required, the work that was created by this government to create these 8 new health organizations. Those were the reasons for the supplementary request. Those are the reasons for the budget request for the following year. Again, if the members could just take a quick moment, the Auditor General, no surprise, produces a really lovely, clean financial statements for us to all look at. You can see, again, that the vast majority of the increase that he's looking for falls under the salary section. We heard the Auditor General speak at length about the things that he has done to decrease the costs in his office. You heard him speak about the complete mismatch on salaries between, compensation packages between public sector and private sector. Their focus on bringing in junior staff to keep costs down. It's clear that the Auditor General, and to be frank, I'd be shocked if it wasn't this way, to anyone who's ever met or known an accountant, that he's doing excellent work to do everything he can to minimize costs. And so once again, I would love if the members opposite, I don't know if they actually had time to look at the budget documents, or if there's, someone who can help explain it to them, to tell me where
Chair,
they
with
are,
all the
where we think
Emily,
that the Office of the Auditor General can make a reduction, because those salary increases, once again, are mandated. They are mandated by the government. I will not be supporting this motion.
thank you, Emily Chapman, and maybe this is a good chance for a reminder. I feel it's been respectful conversation. There's some disagreements on some of these issues, which is good. That's why we're all here. I trust that we can all keep our comments respectful and not necessarily try to impute motives. I appreciate that, not ruling on a point of order right now, but maybe just a quick word of caution to everyone here. I know we have a couple more items that both sides will want to make some commentary on, and if we can continue to keep those comments in a respectful manner, I think it's going to serve our committee well. So I will...
Thank you for the reminder, Mr. Chair. Really, thank you.
And I will move on to MLA Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, I will not be supporting this motion. Mr. Sear just now said saving dollars is, quote, he thinks that's something the Auditor General would strive to do. Let's be absolutely clear, Mr. Chair. That is absolutely what the Auditor General has striven to do. He was very, very clear in his remarks. And again, I will note, when he was questioned by Mr. Sear made the suggestion that the Auditor General may be refusing or failing to do his work. I don't know that I've ever seen a public servant at this committee that was so visibly frustrated. Mr. Wiley and the Office of the Auditor General do everything possible to reduce their costs to Albertans. To quote from Mr. Wiley at this committee, the requests that we're bringing forward, and these are not, as I said, nice to haves, these are reality. To quote further, listen, we have been operating annualized 1.2%. My goodness, that's less than your cost of living on an annualized basis. We have been doing everything we can to take on all of the additional work. I've been with this office for a long time. We've taken on a great amount of work over the years, and our budget is, yeah, it is what it is, and it's reality. To be clear, Mr. Chair, you know, when members opposite talk about, well, this is reasonable, practical. Reasonable and practical, Mr. Speaker, has a great deal more depth than simply setting an arbitrary percent per year. Yes, you can look at the amount per year and talk about population growth and inflation, but you also have to look at the workload. So let's be absolutely clear what we have on the Auditor General's desk right now. He is auditing the dissolution of Alberta Health Services and the creation of 8 new health entities. You know, going back to the comments earlier, again, if the concern of government members is reducing the government deficit and reducing waste, quadrupling the number of ministers, bureaucrats, and health infrastructure, that would probably be a really great place to reduce some of that $7 billion of debt. That aside, because the government made that decision, it is Mr. Wiley and his staff's job to ensure that work is done transparently and correctly. And to be clear, we are talking about the transfer of hundreds of millions of dollars of assets, infrastructure, equipment, staff, entirely new departments being stood up with new bureaucrats, new managers, new deputy ministers. This is substantial work, hugely important to Albertans to ensure, and the government members have been very clear, they're concerned today about financial propriety. Mr. Wiley is the one who makes sure that happens. They have substantially increased his workload, and that's not even going into the things like his investigation into Dynalife, his investigation into what we have termed the corrupt care scandal. Work at which various stages this government has made more difficult. He was very clear in his Dynalife report. If the government wants to reduce costs in his office, then maybe provide the documents he needs when he asks for them. Maybe don't redact them. Maybe don't password protect them. Maybe don't obstruct the interviews that he's trying to set up. That would allow his office to work a lot more efficiently and quickly and reduce costs. But no, this government on every front is choosing to increase the workload for his office and then want to sit and lecture him about finding efficiencies. It's an insult, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Wiley and his office. And the fact is, we are going to be embarking on a search for the next Auditor General of Alberta. What message does that send to the potential candidates we want to recruit? To what is that going to do to our ability to recruit a quality individual to do that work? And again, this is some of the most essential work done for Albertans to hold government to account. And again, we don't impute motives at this committee. But certainly Occam's razor says the simplest explanation is usually the most one that's correct. And it would certainly seem that if a government does not want to fund the Auditor General, it would seem that perhaps they don't want to have to see some of the results of that work. What we have here, and with what the government is proposing to reduce from his budget, just to get back to my numbers here. So again, they approved supplementary fund in the amount of $1,335,000, and now are reducing his budget ask by $1,483,000. So once again, giving with one hand, taking away with the other. And Mr. Wiley has been very, very clear. He is doing everything he can to save dollars, but this government continues to put more work on his desk. He is bound to do the work that is given to him. Mr. Wiley is not padding his budget. Mr. Wiley is not asking for more than he needs. Indeed, he has shown incredible due diligence year over year, he and his predecessors. So I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you. I have MLA Yao next on the list.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I need to respond to all the theatrics and the fan outrage that's coming from His Majesty's loyal opposition on this matter. They're certainly taking certain jabs with comments like not understanding budgets and obstructionists. The ask or the intent to ask all these offices to work with a 95% increase from what their ask was, I think is reasonable. We have to recognize under conservative governments over the last 10 years, we've reduced the salaries of MLAs by measures of 5% each. I know math is difficult, so I'll add up for the others. That's 10% drop there. We wouldn't be in this situation if a previous government from 2015 to 2019 didn't drive our debt up to 80 billion plus. That 80 billion we're still paying debt repayment on in the billions of dollars. When we're talking about concerning spending, they spent 3.7 billion on train cars to promote crude by rail, something which private industry could have and should have been doing. You know who they're subsidizing? They're subsidizing Warren Buffett.
So what I reckon, I'm under relevance. So I recognize that there has been some commentary today around what the current government's decisions are, and that is relevant. Because the current government is the one that is making these changes. The current government is the one that is saying they have to reduce their deficit, and therefore they need to make these changes to these offices. So I recognize I have made a number of comments about the decisions of the current government as a part of that. The decisions of a government from 6 years ago that have nothing to do with this budget have no relevance in this discussion. Now, I recognize that the member may be feeling a bit prickly, but if he wants to defend his government's actions right now on the record and their deficit and their choices, they're the ones that brought it up and put it on the record. But I would submit that the record of the NDP government from 2015 to 2019 has nothing to do with the budgets of these officers today.
I believe relevance is 23B, is that correct? Well, yeah, of course. Emily,
I do appreciate the members' weak argument, but the members from across the way have continually argued that we do not understand budgets. If the members across the way understood budgets, they would understand that this deficit spending that we're currently doing is as a result of previous governments as well. So again, they drove it up to an $80 billion debt. We are continuing to still repay that money. I know that's a concept that is very difficult to grasp, but you have to recognize that it is very relevant in our discussions. So I would argue that is not a point of order. I'm being very relevant. I'm staying true to what we're discussing here, and I would like to continue on with my argument, but I'll leave it up to the chair to discuss this or to rule on that.
Sure. So, thank you. I don't think this is I don't think this is a point of order at this time. I would like to comment to both sides. This is obviously a wide berth when we're talking about a motion and trying to make these comments relevant about budgets and what may or may not have happened on both governments in the past. So I would caution both sides. If we continue down this path in a meaningful and time-consuming way, we may have to move on. But I do want to give both sides a chance to make their points on this, but I would caution that we certainly don't want to go down that path for an extended amount of time or extended manner. So if you could maybe go ahead, MLA Yao, and hopefully we can get this back in line a little bit.
Thank you very much. I'd like to also continue just responding to some of the criticisms. The member Crossway mentions the parliamentary secretary is receiving a nominal increase in their compensation. If the member from across ways understand labor, they feign to they pride themselves on respecting unions and stuff like that. If they understand that mentality, they'll understand that folks that do more work get compensated appropriately for that. I don't think the member Crossway was a member of a union. You're a bicycle messenger for this? Yeah. So were you unionized? Were you unionized? Were you part of labor?
So on the record on that?
Members, I don't think this is any, I don't think it's serving the committee for any of our committee members to make a lot of comments about individuals on the other side. You'll see in the chamber, it's often a important part of our debate there is you tend to make your comments about the government or the opposition, for example. And once we start making individual comments, you often see decorum break down, like maybe we have a little bit here. So again, to all members, whether you're commenting on someone moving a motion or arguing a motion or other aspects, probably not incredibly helpful when we start talking about individuals in that way. So I would ask all members to refrain from doing that. Go ahead, Mr. Yao.
I suppose I'm just saying that the nominal increase in those for parliamentary secretaries nowhere equals the amount of time and effort that they put into that job. So one could argue even there's not the increase that would have been desired. And in this case, all these offices are asking for a certain increase. We're asking them to find a small savings there. I think that's a responsible thing to do considering our financial situation of our province. That's all.
Thank you, Emily. I see Emily Shepard's hand. Emily, you did have your hand first. Do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first thing that I will say, and it's a wee bit related to what the member opposite just talked about. This particular office of the Auditor General did, in fact, over the last number of years, already decrease their operating expenses by 5%, and the auditor talked about it. He talked about between 2019 and 2020 is when they began, in fact, those decreases. The first year it was flat, the second year 3.3%, the second year 2.5%. They have already done this work, Mr. Chair. They have already done this work. And if I may add as well, he noted that there was a 0% increase on other budget items. As people have talked about, this is indeed about the salaries and benefits that I have already talked about were indeed timely. The Office of the Auditor General talked at length about the fact that I think it was on average they pay something like, I hope my number is correct, 33% less than market rate. And the point, particularly for an office like this, that we are expecting to go in, and it isn't just about the numbers. It's also about processes. It's about procedures. It's about things like procurement. And we could go on at length, Mr. Chair, about procurement within this government. And because we do indeed have these 8 new entities, Mr. Chair, in health, the Office of the Auditor General has been asked and tasked with doing appropriate audits on these new entities. And I would imagine that will indeed include procurement services. They, again, just getting back to the issue of salary, that not 33%, their salary is $33,000 below market, so just to clarify that. And that speaks to the issue of retention. Over the last number of years, in fact, they have already reduced their FTE by 8. This office has done the work already. If they get less, than they were asking for, it will indeed have an impact on audits, and that's everything from the timelines of audits. And again, not just about the timelines of different departments in terms of when they might be able to get those audits out, but it also speaks to the timelines of the audits of the entire province. Our province's consolidated documents that are supposed to come out on the end of June. He talked about that, and he talked about the impact that it may have, because the only place this office has to cut, and he did say this over and over and over, is in the contract with the agents. And the trouble is, because he had to not sign that original contract with the agents because we didn't give him the supplementary funding in the first place, that contract then gets moved over into 2026. And because then it's a compressed timeline, it will in fact cost us more for less people, and still potentially have the impact of moving everything on down the line. Again, these are the audited statements of an entire province, as well as these 8 new entities that are coming on. You know, like the fact that this office already knows that they have an issue paying folks what the market would bear. We have an issue here, Mr. Chair, and it is indeed one of salaries. And I would think that when you're talking about fiscal prudence, and I think my colleague from Edmonton Centre talked about this a little bit, it isn't just about that salary, it's about the person making sure that they're the right fit for that job. In this particular, and in fact in all of these offices, we want to make sure that all of the folks working on Albertans' behalf are indeed the right fit for the job. That absolutely includes salary, but it also includes the conditions of work. And I would say that if I was a person who was thinking, maybe I'll make a career change, maybe I should go into the public service, you know, I've had a really lovely career, why on earth would you look at this? Why on earth would you? When you know that this officer, because perhaps you've seen the previous week's episode, I'll call it, this office has done everything they possibly could and then some. And here we are asking them to give more. They cannot. It will have an effect on the work that they are able to do. And for a government that says, we want to make sure that this office can do the work it can do, surely the government then must know that that will simply be impossible. I will not be supporting this.
All right, I have MLA Dack. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to query the government members a little bit, if I could, to ask them to explain in more detail how they may have arrived at the 5% number, and using population and inflation yardsticks to determine what number, or what to reduce the budgetary estimates by for the Auditor General in this particular case. I'm wondering, since there's a number of, you know, very, very well educated individuals on the government side, including one accountant, in their line by line examination of the budgets, I'm sure they've looked at it pretty closely. I'm wondering what mandated work or element of the Auditor General's office's responsibility have committee members decided was superfluous or unnecessary in their examination of the budget to arrive at an amount to deny the Auditor General. Specifically, and what particular audit they wish the Auditor General not to be able to complete before the expiration of his mandate, if indeed that they could identify that. Which audit would they hope that the Auditor General would not have the budget for in order to finish it before the expiration of his mandate? If we just explain a few of those details, I think the public would be interested to know how they arrived at the limitations on the Auditor General's budget.
MLA Yao, I saw your hand.
Again, I'll reiterate, no different than conservative governments have reduced MLA salaries by a total of 10% over the last decade. I don't think it's unreasonable, especially considering the amount of debt and the amount of debt repayment that we're currently doing, to ask offices to demonstrate some fiscal prudence. I mean, again, they're getting a 95% increase, increase of 95% of their ask, which is reasonable. But again, we need to demonstrate to taxpayers some responsible decision-making here, and also recognize that we have to continue to pay down debt and build up the Heritage Savings Trust Fund. I also wish to clarify a comment I made earlier that I think may have been perceived as a dig at the member across the way. I respect that profession. I have some friends who worked in that profession. They provide a very valuable service. I was only trying to point out that he was not part of a labor movement at that time, and may not understand the tact of more work for more pay. Actually, maybe you would, because in that role, the more work you did, the more you got paid. Definitely demonstrates some capitalist endeavors there, so I appreciate that. But in no way was that a jab against anyone's career. Everyone provides a valuable role in our world.
Okay, thank you, MLA Yao. I think that might be it. Did anyone else have? Oh, okay. Got lost in the shuffle. MLA Shepherd.
Thank you for that thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate that clarification from Mr. Yao. My own frustration with the comment was more that it just seemed incredibly cliche. The mere fact that I happen to be someone that traveled quite a bit by bike, that I would have worked as a bike messenger. I'm well familiar with Mr. Yao's own employment career as a firefighter and paramedic, and certainly have respect for him in that, and certainly wouldn't make assumptions in a similar way. I can say that indeed I have worked in union positions. During my time as a laborer with the City of Edmonton, during my time as a writer with Alberta Health, during my career with the Canada Revenue Agency, where I worked as a taxpayer services agent and a leader on their learning team and training facilitator. So certainly I'm well familiar with the concept of if someone does more work, they should get more pay. And what I would say is that's exactly what we're talking about here today. As I noted in my comments earlier, this government has given considerably more work to the Auditor General. They have created it. They have generated it by their decisions. Again, by choosing to dissolve Alberta Health Services and quadruple the bureaucracy involved with 4 new ministers and 8 new health entities. So, therefore, they've increased the work. The Auditor General is asking for more pay to do that work. And he does not have a choice in that. That is work that is mandated to him to do on behalf of the people of Alberta. And to be absolutely clear, just to clarify, I know the member understands, but I just want to clarify the language. He is not asking for a 95% increase in his budget. What the government is offering is 95% of what he has asked for in terms of the increase in his budget. So just to be clear on that. And in terms of that 5%, let's go back to what was actually said on the record. So Ms. Eng, from the Auditor General's office, and I quote, I want to add another comment on the 5% cut on operating costs. We are aware the government departments are doing this for the upcoming budget year, but I'd like the committee to know that our office did that 5 years ago. For our budget in 2019-20, we did a voluntary budget cut of 3.3%. In the next year, we did another voluntary budget cut of 2.5%. So that's in the first 3 years that Doug became the AG of our office. In our first year, we presented a voluntary flat budget. Second year, 3.3% cut. Third year, 2.5% cut. We did that ahead of the game voluntarily. So right now, we are running a bare bones budget. There is really no discretionary operational area that we can really cut. Further cuts will cause us to sacrifice the audit resource competencies and eventually impact the work of timely delivery and quality of the work. So the office is quite clear. They made that 5% cut voluntarily long before the government decided to move forward on that in its departments. I'll reiterate, none of us as MLAs are taking a 5% cut in our office budget. None of us. Yeah, we do more work as MLAs. I'll tell you, being a shadow minister is a lot of extra work on my plate on top of being an MLA. I do not get extra pay for that work. The work I did as critic for health through the midst of a pandemic and the war on doctors, that was a considerable increase on my work and my staff. I did not receive extra pay for that work. And I'm not saying I should have. But what I am saying is I recognize the significant work that is being done by the Office of the Auditor General. The fact that they have done their due diligence repeatedly Voluntarily, they took leadership. That is leadership, Mr. Chair. Sitting here at this table and dictating to others what they need to do is not leadership. Leadership is understanding the realities of the circumstances, the complexities, the nuances, and having flexibility based on what is reality, not performative posturing. So I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Emily Shepherd. We've certainly heard a fulsome debate on this issue. Emily Wright, I did see your hand. I hope it's something new or substantial or important, but I certainly want to give you the chance. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I was a teacher. There's always something new and substantial for me. Okay, so I want us to come back, Chair, to the words of Mr. Wiley himself, if I may. One of the things that he said to us very clearly, and I will quote as directly as I possibly can. He says, I guess what we would have to do is, if we didn't get the funding, as I said, we would have to go back and see where we could shave that off of how we pay our contractors and have to work with those we audit, because that would impact the year end's work and the timelines of those organizations being able to release their audited financial statements. We would have to move when we do our audit work to the non-busy season, and that's because, Chair, they would have to do the work themselves rather than have the ability to hire contractors. And he talked again in great length about that, which would require us to be issuing the audited financial statements at a different time, which is going to cause, I would assume, some disruption for those we audit. That's the reality of what we're faced with. I said that seriously. Listen, we've been operating annualized 1.2%. Nowhere near inflation, I might add, over the last number of years, Chair. My goodness, that's less than your cost of living on an annualized basis. We've been doing everything we can to take on all of the additional work. And I will add here that one of the things that he said, they do on average something like 100 audits. That's what they're working on. That is not what we see in other jurisdictions, including Ontario, Mr. Chair. That's important to my colleague's point about more work. I've been with this office a long time. We have taken on a great amount of work over the years, and our budget is, yeah, it is what it is, and it's reality. This is a realistic budget, Chair. In supplies and services, information systems technology, a whole whopping 3.4% increase. Professional development, 1.6%. Facilities and equipment, they're estimating a decrease of 5.2%. Travel, a decrease of 6.7%. This is an office that indeed is doing more, I would say, than one might expect of them. They have done it preemptively, Mr. Chair. Again, I will not be supporting this motion.
Right, thank you. I think we're ready to call the question. All those in the room who are in favor of the motion, please say aye. All those online?
Aye.
Right, any in the room who are opposed to the motion? Online?
Opposed.
Okay, the motion is carried.
Recorded vote, Mr. Chair.
All right, we have a request for a recorded vote. Those who in the room who are in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mr. Sear, I see Mr. Roswell, and I see Mr. Yao.
All right, those in the room who are opposed to the motion, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mr. Dack, I see Mr. Shepherd, and I see Ms. Wright.
All right, for those members participating remotely, please turn on your cameras and microphones if you wish to vote. When the committee clerk calls your name, please indicate whether you are in favor or against the motion.
Mrs. Petrovic,
In favor.
Ms. DeYoung,
In favor.
and Ms. Chapman.
Opposed.
Mr. Chair, I have 5 in favor and 4 against.
All right, that motion is carried. So we have one office left, which is Elections Alberta. I suspect both sides will have important points to raise, and I would ask that we make those points respectfully. And I trust that our committee will be able to do so. Elections Alberta submitted a budget estimate for 26-27 in the amount of $64,112,000. We'll now go to discussion on the matter. MLA Sear, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, before we begin the discussion,
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, MLA Chapman.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Just out of an abundance of caution, due to a clear conflict of interest, I'm going to recuse myself for this portion of the meeting. So I will exit and rejoin the meeting when you've completed this discussion.
All right, thank you for that, MLA Chapman.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, MLA Sear.
Yes. I'd like to move a motion that the Standing Committee of Legislative Offices amend the proposed budget estimates for the Office of the Chief Electoral Officer for the fiscal year 26-27 in the amount of $64,112,000 to a revised amount of $51,179,500. Approve the estimates as amended, and the chair, on behalf of the committee, forward the request to the President of Treasury Board and the Minister of Finance.
Okay, it looks like we have that motion on our screens, and thank you for reading that motion into the record. MLA Sear, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, the good work that our Elections Alberta office is doing, I recognize that that they're breaking some ground when it comes to recall and the Citizens Initiative. The request from the Elections Alberta office is about a 301% increase, and it sounds staggering when you first hear that amount. But recognizing that they have to ramp up to prepare for the upcoming election, that's usually done a couple of years in advance. So it's anticipated that they are going to need a larger amount when it comes to preparing for an election that is going to be held 2 years from now. Now, the proposed funding that we had done for the amendment is actually increasing the office to 220%, not the 301% that the office had asked for. This gives the office about a 13% increase over the 22-23 election. So this is an increase. And I recognize that, again, the opposition members have continued to use the word cut, but that defies common sense. We see a increase in budget from the prior year of a large amount, recognizing the fact that the Elections Alberta Commissioner needs this more money to be able to prepare for it. We unanimously agreed with the supplementary supply, giving him more money to be able to deal with the recalls that are currently before us. And he said with that money that we have given him, with the supplementary, it would cover the expenses of it would wholly cover the Citizens Initiative that is being moved forward and the current recalls that are before the province. So I would ask that that the members consider that in the end, what we're looking to do is ensure that the Elections Commissioner has the funds to be able to carry out a successful election. 13%, well over inflation, was sufficient. The prior amount was sufficient for the last election. 13% over that amount is something that I think is quite reasonable. And I would hope that all members of this committee would support a 220% increase in the budget for this next year. Thank you.
I thank you, MLA Sear. I have MLA Shepherd up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to speak to that number, when Mr. Sear talks about this 300%, 220%, this is, let's be clear what the context is for Elections Alberta. Elections Alberta has a cyclical budget cycle. So their budget is quite a bit lower for a number of years post-election because they do not have to conduct an election, and an election is an enormous expense. So it is normal to have an increase in hundreds of percent every few years in the budget, and then the budget will come back down. So I recognize these numbers sound big and dramatic, but this is part of the normal cycle of the process. Election's a big expense. They ask for that money. The budget comes down when the election is done. Now, let's talk about the reasonableness then of the expense that is being requested. So Mr. Sear talked about a 13% higher this time than the last election. Well, we've been through quite a bit of inflation, Mr. Chair. Quite a bit of competition for staff. Renting spaces is more expensive. Utilities costs are more expensive. Materials are universally more expensive. Every aspect of conducting an election is more expensive. And that's not even including all of the legislative changes. Let's be clear, Mr. Chair. Every single session we've had since the 2023 election, this government has made amendments to the Elections Act. Every single time. That creates more work for Elections Alberta, and as Mr. Yao noted, when people have more work, they should get more pay because it takes more to do it. So the Elections Alberta, for example, is going to have to communicate to Albertans that the government has made changes that now requires them to bring their voter ID. They're going to have to communicate to Albertans that the government's legislative changes to elections means there will be fewer opportunities for them to vote in advance. They're going to have to communicate a lot to Albertans about how this government has changed the electoral landscape and how they will be voting and their opportunities to vote. So that is in part what Mr. McClure is preparing for here with this budget. This government has consistently repeatedly said there is going to be a referendum. And indeed, we just saw legislation in the legislature clearing the path to ensure that referendum happens. Mr. McClure, as a public servant, is doing what public servants do. And again, as I mentioned, I worked in the Alberta Public Service. I know many people that work in the Alberta Public Service. And when government, even during an election, when people make electoral proposals and they say this is what we'll do if we form government, there are people in the public service doing the work, the due diligence to prepare for the possibility that party gets elected, they're able to start to do the work and hit the ground running. Similarly, when the Premier stands up and repeatedly says she intends to hold an election in 2026, when the government moves legislation saying they are going to hold a referendum in 2026, the folks at Elections Alberta do what they are supposed to do. They prepare for the reality of a referendum in 2026. And what Mr. McClure and his team were very clear about is that the costs of operating a referendum are pretty much the same as running an election. So to say, you know, it's perfectly reasonable that we ask him to reduce his ask by 5%. The assumption there, Mr. Chair, is that Mr. McClure and his team are padding their budget, that there is fat to cut, that there must be, absolutely has to be, there's no question of the fact. But as we heard from repeated legislative officers last week, and as we've put on the record today, pretty much every single one of those officers came in here and said, we have endured cuts over the last few years already, we are down to the bone. Now, again, I recognize in this case, there is a certain amount of speculation involved. That is the tricky bit with Elections Alberta. But what government members are maintaining, if they say, well, absolutely, that this amount that we are willing to give is enough, they are questioning the ability of the folks in Elections Alberta to do these estimates. These are the folks who know this best. And hey, again, I recognize that when they came in and they talked about the recall petitions and that, again, they made the best estimate they could, ended up being lower, so they came back and they corrected that. And again, every dollar that is not used by Elections Alberta comes back. So these are not dollars that are being wasted. These are not dollars that are being misspent. These are dollars that are going to the most essential part of our democracy. And frankly, Mr. Chair, I want to ensure that in the chaos of this legislative landscape where we have the government shifting the goalposts and changing the rules every 6 months, Elections Alberta is in the best position they can be to navigate that landscape and ensure that if we have that referendum, when we have that next election, it's conducted with full integrity. And our government members have been very clear. They passed legislation to say it's absolutely essential that Albertans be able to have trust in our electoral process. Now, I disagree with the measures they brought in that they said would do that, but I absolutely agree with that principle. And again, Mr. McClure and his staff are only doing what they are mandated to do under the changes imposed by this government and giving their best faith budget in terms of what they believe that is going to cost. And to take this situation now where we've given them the supplementary funding today that they requested, but then are going to claw back on this from his budget, from the budget request, another $12 million. Again, that essentially obliterates the supplementary funding request that was put in. So that actually will put Mr. McClure and his team potentially at about a $3 million deficit from what they were planning and what they've budgeted and what they've estimated. And frankly, Mr. Chair, I trust the CEO and his team in estimating this far more than anyone else at this table, and in that I include myself. Yes, we are here to oversee and do due diligence. That is part of our job as leaders, elected leaders in this province. But again, none of these dollars gets wasted. Anything not spent comes back. So I cannot support this motion.
Thank you, MLA Shepherd. I have a bit of a list. MLA Petrovic, MLA Yao, and then MLA Wright. So we'll start with MLA Petrovic.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. Contrary to popular opinion from those opposite, I know how to read a budget, and I actually looked at the budget requests over the past 4 years and 8 years ago just to see how this year's request at the same point in the election cycle compares to this year. Each year, at the same point in the election cycle, 2019 and 2023, there was a significant ask for money, and each year, significant amounts were returned. For example, in 2019, there was 23 million of unused funds. In 2023, 26 million in unused funds. Today, today's decision, or hopefully decision, because I am in support of this motion, it's going to keep flexibility in place to allow additional funding requests if needed. So as we look at this budget, as we look at years past it and what this looks like, I'm in full favor of this, of Mr. I believe it was Mr. Sear who made this motion to revise these amounts, especially when looking at the budgets from previous years and in the same sort of previous election cycle as well. And I just want to know, it's, it is a 220% increase over last year's budget as well. And I just wanted to make that point. That's it for right now, Chair. I'm curious to see how the members opposite are gonna, I guess, justify that.
Thank you, MLA Petrovic. Mr. Yao is wanting me to alternate. I agree. So we'll go to MLA Wright, and then we'll go to MLA Yao.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, I will attempt to do some of the justification that my colleague just asked for. The first thing is I would say that there are some differences from 2019 and 2023, and the biggest difference that I can see having to do with the electoral landscape and how it has changed, Chair. Should all of the recalls go forth? And it's a should, and this is kind of the world, Chair, that that Elections Alberta lives in. It should, what if? And so they need to prepare for all of those eventualities and then more. They certainly have some, in the supplementary funding, which was just granted, they certainly have some room to do some of that preparatory work. But there isn't room, Chair, to run an entire election or to run an entire event. And they very much talked about the potential for a referendum to be an event, much like an election is an event. There is a potential now, I think, and because of Bill 14 passing, we could be, depending upon what the government decides to do, we could potentially be looking at not just one, but 2 referenda in the coming year. Again, it depends upon what the government decides to do with things, and and of course depends upon if the second referendum initiative meets the threshold. I understand all of that, Chair. However, again, we're living in the world of possibilities and eventualities and needing to prepare in the very best way possible. So if we're looking at just that, there's the potential. Actually, I should add it, there's the potential for 3 events, because we could be looking at 2 separate referenda, two separate questions, potentially a third one, actually, because I've forgotten the last one that came in from Mr. Lund. So there's even an additional one that could come up. There's also a potential for an election event. This is an extraordinary amount of work, so perhaps the potential of 4 massive province-wide events sometime in the next year or 2, for which this office needs to prepare. And they need to prepare not just on a small scale, it's a massive scale. And Mr. McClure and the folks who worked with him talked about a number of things that come to bear. They talked about that simple space. Right now they don't have space, they need space. And unlike in other provinces that have run other recalls and that sort of thing, they had the space available to them. We do not. So they certainly need to add the space. Technology, they need to buy all of the computers. And you think about when you go to vote, it isn't just a computer for one returning officer, it's a computer for every single poll clerk, because they need to have that computer. And then you need to make sure that they've got the right kind of software. And that's just for one election event, and then perhaps because it's a different election, I don't know, or a different event, you might have to have something slightly different in terms of what it is you're offering folks. The training will have to be different. You think about the difference in verifying each and every signature that comes in for a citizen's initiative versus verifying, as my colleague talked about, that person's ID who's just coming in to vote. We all know that it took a wee bit longer to vote in the cities in the last municipal election. I would say it's probably going to take a little bit longer to vote in whether it's a referendum event or a general election. And they also talked about the fact that because we've lost the ability to use tabulators, that means they need to have about 20,000 people to do those vote counts. Again, they need to hire all those people, and that takes time, which I think is probably the reason for the uptick in travel. Because they in fact need to travel around the province to hire these people, to make sure that they have the right people hired, and then further to train all the folks. And again, it can't just happen at, like I think of, now this will age me, but like in Bewitched, when Samantha would move her, nose and all the lovely things would appear. We can't operate that way. They have to plan ahead. Of course, there's a massive, massive difference in freight and postage and rentals, and that's because we now need to mail everything, and you need to have the timelines. And mail has increased, just the cost of postage has increased, to say nothing of the materials in terms of what it is you're actually needing to post. Getting it to an elector and then getting it back. And then having someone not only send it out, but also have someone receive it and then to count it afterwards, Mr. Chair. Again, massive increase in contract services. Well, of course there is, because they have to prepare for all of these events. And one of the folks who was talking said, basically, if there's a snap election called, and to my mind that would also work for a snap referendum, if I might call it that, there are some things that must be in place. We can't start when the snap election is called. We must always be in a state of readiness at every point in time. So that is the challenge we face as an office. Besides the election workers or returning officers, we also have critical materials and supplies that must always be available. And like you think about the difference between a potential by-election because of a successful recall event. You think about just simple ballot paper. They talked about the fact that the ballot paper isn't actually readily available. And they need to include all of these things. We must keep a certain level of stock in the warehouse and continue to monitor those. Those are very critical. We do not get to start the procurement process when an election is called. We have to put some things in place. That is the challenge we have, especially when it has to do with when it has a provincial dimension to it. And as I just said, there is indeed a potential for 4 massive provincial events in the next year or 2. They have to have all of these supplies at their ready because they simply do. They also very much talked about the fact that in terms of computers and technology, you know, they're looking at sort of us becoming the new Ontario, if you will, where perhaps we can rent out some of those computers and other equipment to other jurisdictions to help recoup some of that cost. But the reality is they have to have all of those things at the ready. And in addition to that, we can't forget that Elections Alberta also runs investigations that have to continue to run. You know, when people don't do things as simple as, you know, miss a filing deadline. All of those things have to be investigated, so those things have to continue as well. And I would worry that if we're not giving them this funding that they are asking for, that might have an impact on things like investigations. And they've already talked about having to become more reactive rather than proactive. You know, and so it's just like, you know, yeah, won't be supporting this motion, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Emily Wright. Emily Yao, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to note for the record that the initial projections from the Chief Electoral Officer for these recall elections, should they happen, was initially at the amount of about $1 million per recall. The newer number of approximately 300,000 is definitely a lot more reasonable, but it certainly demonstrates to me that the humanity and the people that create these budgets, they're not perfect. None of us are. So for us to ask for them to provide them with 95% of their ask is not unreasonable. And again, also recognizing that not every recall campaign will be successful, that I hope that they will return the unspent money that is being allocated for those things. And again, I need to emphasize, we would not be in this situation if we were not still repaying a loan of $3.7 billion to subsidize Warren Buffett's investments in rail.
Thank you, Emily Yao. I have Emily Dack next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to reflect upon the role of this committee, and my clear understanding of our work is that we are an oversight committee, and we oversee the legislative officers in a way that I believe foundationally should be to facilitate their work, to foster their work, not to frustrate their work. Certainly, we are mindful of budgets, but what Member Petrovic recently stated in her comments was, quote, that we need to have, or we have the flexibility to allow additional funding requests, unquote, for legislative offices going forward. And that, in my mind, is one of the problems we've been facing as a committee in our deliberations today, is that the government seems to think they should deficit fund these committees so that in future years they will have the flexibility, quote unquote, to come forward and ask this committee for supplementary budgets, which is indeed not the way that we should be looking to facilitate, in my mind, the legislative officers. Because what this flexibility does, Mr. Chair, is keeps the legislative officers off balance. In this case, we're talking about the Elections Alberta and the Chief Electoral Officer. Keeps them off balance so they don't know from year to year if indeed they're going to have the finances to hire the people they need, if they're going to be able to perform the work that they anticipate might happen. And I think it's an improper way of conducting ourselves as a committee to have as a goal of keeping the legislative officers off balance financially so that they don't know how to plan properly to perform their duties. So that being said, I think that we should keep in mind that the annual expectation that legislative officers should come forward or have the flexibility, quote unquote, to come forward for additional funding requests, supplementary money, is the wrong direction to go in. Certainly guard the gates as far as the financing is concerned, and make sure we don't see exceptional funding requests become the norm. And I don't think that's been the pattern, Mr. Chair. However, the arbitrary reduction of requested amounts that we've seen in the budget estimates are also not the way that this committee should adopt to fund the committees. Because what happens, Mr. Chair, is what we're seeing right now, where the committee, the legislative officer, in this case the chief electoral officer, is off balance and has an unprecedented amount of work at his feet, some of which may or may not be actually necessary, but the government members seem to be taking the stance that they already know which one, for example, of the recall petitions the government thinks will proceed or not. So I'm wondering what the calculation was on part of government members, indeed, when they were estimating or analyzing which recall petition may or may not be successful, in order to determine how much they would be reducing the chief electoral officer budget by. Is it because they think perhaps none of them should proceed, that they think the process is wholly illegitimate and the recall petition should not proceed in all their own way, or not? Or indeed, if they think that there are petitions that will particularly fail, and therefore they've decided on an arbitrary amount based on that calculation. So just a little additional explanation might be warranted here. Thank you.
Thank you, MLA Dack. I have on my list, I have MLA Shepherd next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to follow a little bit on what MLA Dack was just speaking about, just the question of uncertainty. So certainly that has been the case, I think, year over year with this committee under this current legislature, where officers have not known in advance what the expectations of government or the committee are going to be. And what we've seen consistently is the officers come in and they present their budget and their business plan, and there's some questions. I have yet to hear any government member, speak to them and say, okay, so if you were to receive 5% less than your ask, what would the impact be? How would that affect your budget? Are there places you feel where this 5% could be taken? Because that is the opportunity we have for that dialogue, to understand. I mean, if that's truly what we're trying to do, is work together with the officers to engage to achieve good ends for Albertans, that would seem to be the opportunity to do it. But what we see instead is the officers come, they present their things, they leave, and then we come back and members dictate that they're going to make that cut. It's certainly possible for government to reach out to officers of the legislature ahead of time and say, hey, our expectation this year is going to be a 2%, 3%, 4%, 5% cut. Then the officers could come to this committee prepared to address that question. And they could present a budget that has that. They could present maybe a budget that has that and a budget does not, and we'd be able to have a rational dialogue about what the impacts of that might be. That is yet to happen. So indeed, I agree with Mr. Dack that introduces a great deal of stress and uncertainty for these offices as they attempt to do their work. And I'll tell you, what I saw from the folks that when they came here and presented, and certainly from, the Auditor General, the Chief Electoral Officer, is just exasperation. They're so desperately trying to understand what it is that government wants them to do and how they want them to do it. And there is this lack of communication, which impacts their ability to do that. Last thing I just want to touch on, just in response to Mr. Yao, I'd say there is a significant difference between estimates for new and unknown processes, like recall and citizens' initiatives, and known processes like a provincial election. And the vast majority of the increase in costs we're talking about here are for the realities of that provincial election and for a referendum, which again is a known quantity, having conducted one under the Kenney government on equalization. These are things that Elections Alberta has done and is very familiar with. And knows how to go about, I think, providing reasonable estimates for those. So again, I will not be supporting this motion.
Okay, thank you. MLA Wright, go ahead.
Yeah, just to add a couple of things to the discussion, Chair. The first is that there are, of course, some, as my colleague just alluded to, some additional complexities as well. Depending upon when a general election might be held, for example, we could indeed be working under new boundaries, which will also mean that there will be some additional expenses incurred by this office, which I think cannot be discounted or in fact forgotten about. Bill 54 as well has made a difference in terms of the planning and preparatory nature of the work of this office. But again, I do feel it necessary to state that with this $13 million cut, and I will call it a cut because that is exactly what it is, Chair, it is a cut. We cannot forget that Mr. McClure was very, very definitive in his statement that if they did not receive the full budgetary amount that they were asking for in the 26-27 budget estimates, they would likely need to enter into that process of encumbrance, of being encumbered, which means in fact that they will be running at a deficit because they have to do this work. If there is a recall, they have to do all the things that they have to do legislatively to account for the recall, to make sure that folks in that particular constituency have the opportunities that they should have. We are indeed living in a democracy at the moment. If there is a citizens initiative referendum, this office needs to make sure that there are ballots for people to fill out, that there are people working as poll clerks and as returning officers and as deputy returning officers. If there is an election, they have to exactly do that same thing. They still have to do this work, Mr. Chair. And the idea of having a legislative office be encumbered in subsequent years, I don't understand why we would be okay with that. This is a budget that is not only realistic, but again, is a thinking forward budget, a what if budget. And to answer Mr. Yao, he used the word hope where he said, I would hope the money would be returned. The money would be returned. That is the process. Thank you.
All right, thank you, MLA Wright. Thank you, members, for that important discussion. I think we're prepared to call this question. So for those in the room here, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Online?
Aye.
All right. In the room, those who are opposed to the motion?
All opposed?
All right, and there, don't see anyone else online who hasn't voted, so that motion is carried. We have a request for a recorded vote. So recorded vote has been requested. Those in the room who are in favor of the motion, please raise your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mr. Yao, Mr. Roswell, and Mr. Sear.
All right. Those in the room who are opposed to the motion, please raise your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see Mr. Dack, Mr. Shepherd, and Ms. Wright.
All right. And for those members participating remotely, please turn on your cameras and microphones if you wish to vote. When the committee clerk calls your name, please indicate whether you are in favor or against the motion.
Mrs. Petrovic
In favor.
and Ms. DeYoung.
In favor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 5 in favor and 3 against.
All right, that motion is carried. We are going to take a quick 5-minute break so we can set up the room for our next agenda item. So we'll set a timer for 5 minutes. Thank you. everyone, welcome back. We're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is the Auditor General search. So I'll begin by reading the mandate. This was Government Motion 13. So the Standing Committee on Legislative Offices has an existing mandate provided through legislation, the standing orders, and established practices. However, it also operates according to instructions from the Assembly. Through Government Motion 13, which was agreed to on November 25th, this committee was assigned a special task. We have been charged with inviting applications for the position of Auditor General and recommending to the Assembly the applicant we consider most suitable for that position. So I'd ask at this time if there are any questions regarding the committee's mandate. I just want to confirm with the clerk, we don't actually need a motion for this. This is just for discussion, correct? Okay. Is there any members wishing to make a comment? MLA Sear?
Yes, I'd like to move a motion that the Standing Committee of Legislative.
I think this is, there's no motion on this part of the agenda.
Well, I really want to move this motion.
You're all fired up, yeah.
My apologies
all
for jumping the
good,
gun,
all good.
sir.
No, so, but if I don't see any hands, so we don't go anywhere. We'll switch over to Part B, which is the draft advertising strategy. So just to let everyone know, a draft communications plan and an advertising copy have been distributed for consideration. So before we get to any motions, I will ask Ms. Sorensen to address this document, and then I'll open the floor to discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, committee. Yeah, it is still morning. Okay. I just wanted to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present this plan. I know you had an original plan sent to you that had a few numbers that we were still confirming. We are still confirming some of those numbers. But our primary goal with this is to ensure broad awareness of the opportunity among qualified candidates, to drive traffic to the Assembly website, and to maintain transparency and credibility throughout the process. We are recommending a multi-channel approach that would include advertising on our website, social media, media relations, as well as the Auditor General's website. We'd also be targeting professional networks, both at the national and provincial levels. And to maximize visibility, we would also recommend working with Post Media and Globe and Mail to do some recruitment advertising. These are very similar to what we've done with other legislative office committees, as well as other campaigns that we've run. While the numbers are still being confirmed, I'm confident in saying that the entire budget that we are looking at is under $25,000. So we are currently looking for some direction from the committee or any discussion. I'd be happy to answer any questions based on the plan that you were given last week.
All right, thank you very much for that information. Be derelict in duty not to go to Emily Sear first, considering how eager he was. So go ahead, Emily Sear.
I'm very eager on this one. Love advertising. Well done, Ira. The Standing Committee of Legislative Offices approved the proposed advertising strategy for the recruitment of the Auditor General.
Up on the screen, but happy to hear, actually, Emily Sear, did you have any comments to speaking to this motion?
Yeah, well, it's the understanding that the bulk of these responsibilities related to the Auditor General Search Committee will be delegated to the subcommittee. The advertising strategy involves spending and funds, and that must be approved by the full committee, which I fully respect. The advertising strategy that is put forward by the, I'm not sure, Communications, thank you for that clarity, is reasonable. It's cost conscientious, and it follows the prior search committee's advertising strategies that have proven to be successful in highly qualified candidates of the past. I encourage all members to vote for this motion.
Thank you, Emily Sear. Are there any other members looking to join the discussion? All right, seeing none, prepared to call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Online?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, hearing none, that motion is carried. We'll now move on to a discussion on the subcommittee. So some committee members have raised the possibility of striking a subcommittee to conduct many of the search and recruitment responsibilities and report back to the larger committee. I would now open the floor to discussion on potentially establishing a subcommittee. Emily Roswell, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion.
Please do.
Bring that up, that'd be great. I'd like to move, in accordance with Standing Order 52.001, the Standing Committee on Legislative Offices establish a subcommittee to be referred to as the Auditor General Search Committee as follows. A, the mandate of the subcommittee shall be, 1, to invite applications for the position of Auditor General in accordance with Government Motion 13, agreed to by the Assembly on November 25th, 2025, and 2, to recommend to the committee that applicants it considers most suitable for that position. B, the subcommittee shall be comprised of 1, the chair of the committee as the chair of the subcommittee, and 2, 3 members nominated by the Government Caucus, and 3, 2 members nominated by the Official Opposition Caucus. The members referred to in Clause B sub 2 and 3 must be nominated on or before December 15th, 2025. And D, the quorum for the meeting of the subcommittee is 3 members, at least 1 member from each caucus referred to in Clause B2 and 3 in attendance. A member of the committee may substitute for a member of the subcommittee at a meeting, provided that notice of substitution is provided to the committee clerk before the subcommittee meeting commences.
Okay, is there any discussion on this motion? The amendment would be in order during this for discussion, right? Oh, okay, go ahead, Emily, sir.
I just noticed that when you were proposing the motion that you went 52.001, when it's in fact 52.011. Is there clarity there?
I think we would defer to what's on the screen, right? Yeah, okay.
Okay, I was just asking.
No, thank you, Emily Sear. And Emily Yao, you would like to move an amendment, sounds like?
Yes, I'd like to move that the motion be amended by A, striking out Clause B11 and substituting B11 members Nolan Dick and Jackie Lovely, nominated by the Government Caucus, and B, striking out Clause B111 and substituting B111 members David Shepherd and Peggy Wright, nominated by the Official Opposition Caucus. C, striking out Clause C. D, renumbering Clause D as Clause C. And E, renumbering Clause E as Clause D. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Emily Yao, for reading that into the record. I think that is now on our screen, so I will open the floor for discussion on this amendment. Emily Shepherd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, I'm in support of the principle. I think a subcommittee is reasonable to make it a bit easier for us to have that flexibility. I've worked in both circumstances on this committee. When I was chair of the committee, we did a number of search processes which involved all members of the committee. But also, you know, when we were looking for a new auditor for the Auditor General, we did that via subcommittee. Did find that was efficient, so I'm certainly amenable to it here. I do have one question. So we have the original motion, which mentions chair of the committee, 3 members nominated by the Government Caucus, and 2 members nominated by the Official Opposition. The amendment proposes 2 government members and 2 members of the Official Opposition. So I just want to clarify that so that in fact that amendment then is changing that principle, so that there will be that there's not going to be an additional government member. There will just simply be the 2, Nolan and Jackie, that have been named, and then myself and Peggy.
Yeah, so Emily Shepherd, I believe that your clarification is correct. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that being the case, then I'm in support of the motion, and though I was in favor of extending the contract of Mr. Wiley, that having been decided, I'm happy to participate in the process to select our next Auditor General. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily Dack, please go ahead.
Just for further clarification, I believe it was mentioned in conversation I heard just now that the 2 members from each government and opposition caucus would be named. and the chair? So there'd be, the chair will hold the deciding vote.
Yeah, so the two members from each caucus, and I'll be the chair of the subcommittee. All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak? All right, seeing none, we can call this question on the amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Online?
Aye.
All right, are there any opposed? All right, hearing none, that motion is carried. Now we vote on the motion as amended. Do we have to read that in again, or, oh, I can just call the vote?
Yes.
Okay, so we will have Emily out reread it and, all right, so, calling a vote on the, motion as amended. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Online?
Aye.
All right, are there any opposed? All right, hearing none, that motion as amended is carried. All right, we can move on in our agenda to other business. Are there any items for discussion under other business? Seeing none, our next meeting date will be held at the call of the chair. And we can move to adjournment. Would a member like to move a motion to adjourn? Emily Yao has moved. All those in favor, please say aye. Online?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion is carried.